Hey, it's Brandon Styles with BrandonStyles.com. Today you're going to learn how to build and actually launch a website using WordPress and a special WordPress theme called Divi. This tutorial is suited for people who want a more modern, slick-looking website. Whether you own a business, you want to start a blog or a vlog, or have a podcast, a product, or cause that you want to talk about. By the end of this, people will be able to discover and read about your cause or business, and you'll have a great looking, easy to work on website that's super simple to maintain and that makes an awesome first impression on your customer. Now, one thing you don't have to be to follow this tutorial today, techie. I promise you can follow this step by step without having to know anything weird like code or ones and zeros. If you can type and use basic Microsoft Word, you'll be able to build a really sharp, clean, modern website for yourself and your business. Also, at the end, I'm just going to give you a link to download the website layout we create together anyways. Then you can import that design to your new hosting space and immediately start building and customizing from there. Now, here's a real quick overview of the 5 things we'll cover today to get your website built and launched. Step 1, we'll buy a domain. It takes about 7 minutes and costs $13. Step 2, we're going to buy hosting space. It takes, again, about 7 minutes and it's going to cost us $10 a month. Step 3, install WordPress. It takes about 1 minute and it is totally free. Step 4, we're going to buy the theme called Divi. It takes about 5 minutes and will cost between $89 and $250. Finally, step 5, we're going to upload our content to Divi and actually design our website. It takes about 60 to 90 minutes or however long you would like to put in. The total cost today is going to be between $222 and $302. That's just for the first year. After that, it'll be $133 a year. So it's like $11.07 a month. As you can see, the majority of the cost is going to be this one-time cost for buying the Divi theme, and it costs $89 for yearly access or $249 for lifetime access. So again, it's an upfront cost because you'll have to purchase the Divi theme made by Elegant Themes. Also, Divi has amazing support, has an amazing community, and tons of online tutorials. Freaking super easy to use, drag and drop WordPress theme that can literally do everything. You don't have to know anything about coding to do the site. Basically, if you can drag and drop stuff around, you can use Divi to build a website for your business or your lifestyle. So in the Divi tutorial today, you'll see all the stuff this theme gives you. Things like responsive design. That means your website will be easily usable on a desktop, phone, or tablet. This is also a major ranking factor for Google, so it's important that we get this. You'll look at things like history changes, so you never lose your changes or break your site. You'll see the visual builder, dividers, animations, the inline editor, drag and drop functionality, copy and pasting between styles, how to import and export the design of all your pages, how to copy one page to another page, the theme customizer, setting topography, the Divi options, and how to add all your social media accounts in one swoop. Now let me tell you who I am and why I'm making this video. I'm Brandon Styles, and I help businesses build or redesign their websites to convert more prospects into paying customers. I think everyone, especially business owners, should have the ability to work on and update their own website. Not being able to build or work on a website should not stand in the way of building a business that serves other people. So this is how I can help folks on a more limited budget. I can make free videos like this about great tools and products that we use and that we find. You can watch and learn, and then if you like those tools and want to use them too, I have an opportunity to be paid a referral fee from the services for introducing them and showing you how to use them. So that's basically how all this works for me. Keep in mind, these aren't random services that I've picked out. These are the exact tools and services that we use to build a website for somebody, whether they have a budget of $100 or $100,000. Now let's talk about your end product. At the end of this tutorial, you'll literally have a website built and pretty much ready to launch after you go back and put in your own words. It's also going to be fast. It's going to look pretty darn slick, and it will be ready to update and optimize whenever you feel so inclined. Best of all, it'll be super easy to use and maintain or update, whether you want to spend an hour a day on it or 5 minutes a week, or just pay your non-techie intern or your Uncle Loy to update it all. Again, this is pretty much as drag and drop easy as it gets to build a really good website. Finally, let's cover a few FYIs so that I'm not wasting your time. Use the timestamps below to jump to different parts of the video. For example, if you already have a domain, you can skip that section and save yourself 20 minutes. You can also speed up or slow down the video. YouTube can do all of that for you. Just click there on that little cogwheel. Alright, this works on both phones and desktops, so if you need to slow down or you need me to speed up, then you can adjust that little speed slider to taste and go to town. Now, we'll get started buying, building, and launching your website. To get a website online and functioning, you need 3 elements, and we're going to go over those right now. Now, if you already know what these are, you can use the timestamps in the description below to skip ahead. But if you don't know what they are, then we're going to cover them right now. So let's go into the 3 parts of a working website. Number 1, you need a domain name. This is your google.com, www.facebook.com, example.com, brandonstyles.com, whatever it is. They're about $12 a year on average, and we need to buy that, and I'll show you how in a second. Second, you need your hosting or your server space. This is the area on the internet. Think of it like a hard drive that you purchase virtually where all your content will be stored. And when people type in your domain name, your Internet of Things will connect you to this server space, and the server will send back the content, which is part 3, to your end user. So let's kind of take a small look at how that really works. Number 1, your user is going to type in your domain name, and the internet is going to send a signal to the assigned server space where that domain is connected. It's going to go through, find your content, and when it finds it, it's going to send it back to the user, and they're going to see your website. So that is how a website works, the 3 parts you need. Now let's go into how to purchase or build those, starting with the domain name. So the first part of building a website is purchasing a domain name. Now there are lots of places to buy a domain name, but the one I like to use is actually Google's domain buying service. And you can get there by typing domains.google.com. The reason I like Google domains is that they offer free privacy, so you don't have to pay any extra to make your information private. So what we need to do now is we need to search for an available domain name. So I'm going to create one for my agency, so I'm going to see what's out there. Now the agency is called forloop, so I'm going to see if forloop.com is available. So I'm going to type it in right here, forloop.com, hit enter. We can see from these results that forloop.com is not available. That means that someone has it. Now you can try and click on this if you want to try and buy it from somebody. This Who Is page will maybe tell you who owns it, but they're probably going to try and shaft you and make you pay a lot of money. So it's either better to go with one of these other top level domains like forloop.org, forloop.net, etc., or you can keep searching. So I might want to add in something like forloopcreative.com and see if that is available. Now that is available. There's a green check mark. It is an exact match. That sounds good to me. I'm going to go ahead and buy it. So to do that, you need to click this shopping cart. We can see it's been added to our cart. If this is the only domain name you need, we're going to go to the cart and buy it right now. So privacy protection is on, auto renew is on. That means it's going to renew around December 19th every year, and it's going to cost us $12 a year or $1 a month. Totally cool, pretty inexpensive. Here you're going to enter in your name and contact information. Once your personal information is submitted, you're going to enter your credit card number right here with a month, year, and the special code on it. Your name, obviously, we all know how to do this. And then we're just going to click buy. All right, we are now getting our domain name registered. And as you can see, it took about 10 seconds. Registration is all complete. We now own this domain name. So I own forloopcreative.com. You're going to get a confirmation email and it's going to be great. Now you can either build a website using one of their web hosting partners. We're not going to do that right now. You can set up a custom email with G Suite. So if I wanted Brandon at forloopcreative.com, you could do that. I think it's about $5 a month, maybe 10, but we're also not going to do that right now. I'm going to X out, and we can also see For Loop Creative right here. So we have some options here to configure a website, configure email, reroute our domain name servers. We're going to do that later. It's really simple. Settings, and then in a little bit it will tell us when this expires. Right now it's on renew, so it should never expire. So we have our domain name. We need to purchase hosting. This is a place where our content is going to sit, that our domain name is going to point towards, okay, so that everything's connected. Now there are a few different options when it comes to hosting plans, and it really boils down to what you want to spend, but there are some trade-offs. So the most popular one for most people is what's called shared hosting, and that is when 5, 10, 100, 1,000 different people share one server. So you might have this blue guy right here taking up 60% of the resources on this server. Think of it like a hard drive, okay? Think of it as a single computer. So this blue person might be taking up 60% of the resources on a computer. This red website might be taking up 20%, the blue 2%, so on and so forth. Now you can see where that might be a problem, because this server only might have 10 gigabytes of RAM, 50 gigabytes of storage. So it's limited resources all being shared by thousands of people, so it's slow. Now the trade-off is it's the cheapest one. Usually you can get this at places like Bluehost for about $4 to $5 a month. So that's why most people go with it. It's because it's fast enough and it's the cheapest. After shared hosting, most people will start to venture into my favorite, which is called VPS, or Virtual Private Server. So this is not as expensive as having your own private server somewhere. Instead of having 1,000 people on one server space or computer space, you're only sharing it with 3, and you're all given the exact same amount of resources. So instead of having maybe 20 people on a server splitting up 10 gigabytes of RAM, you might just have 3, and you're guaranteed to have that amount of resources available to you. Now this is the second most expensive because they can't put as many people on a single server, but it's a lot faster and you get a lot of other perks. We'll talk about that in a second, how to set that up. Finally, the thing that's pretty out of most people's price range is going to be your own private server. That means that no one else uses it. You have access to all, let's say 10 gigabytes of RAM, 50 gigabytes of storage, but it is going to cost you. This is way out of the needs for most business websites. Most people will either go shared hosting or use a VPS, which is my favorite and what I'm going to show you how to do in a second. Just like with picking a domain name service, there are lots of VPS services. The one that I like to use is called Cloudways. So just type in Cloudways on Google. It comes up here first. It's this kind of purpley looking website, and it is managed cloud hosting. It's very fast, really, really simple to put together, and I'm going to show you how it works. So the first thing we're going to do is to see all plans. As you can see, you get free migration if you already have a site. It's pay as you go. You get free security certs, so you get free HTTPS installed on your site, which is a really big ranking factor for Google. You get great support, and you get integration if you need it, which we won't today, with all these other services. So it's very cool. Now this looks a little bit confusing, but it's not. We are going to choose this service. Now again, compared to Bluehost and things like that that are about $4, this is more expensive. However, it's also going to be 5 times the speed, and that is another big ranking factor when it comes to Google search. Not only that, but your website development and your designing is going to be a lot faster on the back end as well. So when we go into WordPress in a little bit and we're building, it's going to be a lot faster. So we're going to click Start for Free, and we're going to enter in our email and a password. This is going to open our account. All right, when you put your information in, it's going to say Welcome to Cloudways, and it is going to give you an email to activate your account. When that email comes, here it is. We're going to activate it, activate account. It's going to take us back. Cool, that didn't even take 7 minutes. It took about 2 minutes. And now we have created our server space. So we have 2 gigabytes of RAM and 50 gigabytes of storage, which is exactly what we get on the lowest tier of Bluehost minus all the RAM right here, which means our website's gonna go fast. And we have also created our first WordPress website. That's right, it's already created. So we're going to go to Applications, tick this over, and we can see that we have created For Loop Creative, right? So we bought our domain name. We haven't connected it yet. We've bought our hosting space, and we have created an instance of WordPress right here. So I'm going to go ahead and access this now, and you do it by clicking this little square with the arrow pointing out, and this takes us to our WordPress install. This is it. If you went to this address right now, you would see this. Now, this is not pretty. It doesn't look good, but we have our website working and it is online. If we had our content here, people would be able to access it. It's great. So that was really easy. That took me about 5 minutes to do. So far we have bought our domain name. We're going to connect it later. We have bought our hosting and set up a WordPress application. Now all we need to do is create the actual website content using the Divi theme. So let's go ahead, buy the Divi theme, install it onto our WordPress website, and get designing. Last thing we need to do before we start designing is actually buy the Divi theme. If you don't mind, it would really be cool if you clicked on the affiliate link in the description on this video. It gives me a small commission for putting this together, and it helps me to create more videos like this so I can help you and you don't have to pay a lot of money for a private designer. So no big deal if not. It doesn't cost you anything else, but it helps me out a little bit when creating these tutorials. Once you click that affiliate link in the description, you're going to be taken to elegantthemes.com and you're going to buy the Divi theme. And it's very, very simple. Go up here, click join to download. So we're going to join the Elegant Themes community. And when you do, you get access to all this really cool stuff. There are a few pricing options. One is $89 per year. You get access to all the themes, all the plugins like the Bloom contact plugin, theme updates, support, unlimited websites, and you get a 30-day money-back guarantee. It's really, really cool. Now, if you love Divi and you think it's something you might be using for a while, you can get the lifetime access. So you pay $249 one time and you get Divi for life. You get lifetime updates, lifetime access, and it's really cool. So we're gonna go ahead and click lifetime access for this video. Once you click buy now, you are going to put in your information. So you make up a username, put in an email, you put in your password, confirm your password. You write your first name, type your last name, country of residence. There is the $249. You're going to agree to this and you're going to click complete registration. It's then going to ask you for your credit card and you can go ahead and start putting in your credit card and you will click pay $249 and it will send you a confirmation email. Once we've confirmed our email address, now we are going to log into the membership area and download the Divi theme. So click login, put in the username and password you just entered, and then click member login. Now we are in our members area, and as you can see, here are the downloads we have available. We have the Divi theme, we have the extra theme, which is similar to Divi and very cool. We also have the Divi builder. So if you don't want to use the Divi theme, just the visual builder, which we'll talk about later on, you can use that. Bloom is an email split test contact form plugin, which is really cool, really slick. And then Monarch is a social media plugin that we can use to add share buttons to our site in a really clean way. But for right now, we are just going to click download on the Divi theme, and it's going to download right to our computer. It's about a 6 megabyte file, and we now have the Divi theme ready to install on our WordPress website. So let's go into how to do that right now. Here we are back in our Cloudways server space. And once again, we are going to navigate to our applications, make sure that is an application. Remember, here is your actual server, and then here are the applications or the websites on that server. By the way, if you wanted to ever add another website, just click Add Application and choose the server, and then you can choose what you want and start again, but we're not going to do that. So let's just go back to Applications. Now remember what our WordPress website looked like. Right now it looks just like this. It's working and it's live, but it's not very cool, not very useful. So how do we log into the back end and start designing this website to make it look how we want? Well, let's go back to Cloudways. What we're going to do is we're going to click this, see how it lights up gray? We're just going to say got it. And here is how we access the back end of our WordPress site. So here is the URL. Anytime you need to access the back end of a WordPress website, by the way, you enter in your domain name /wp-admin, okay? And if we click this button, you'll see that it takes us to that right now. So here's where we're going to enter in our username. Let's go back to Cloudways. Here's our username. Let's enter in the password that was generated for us. We're just going to click to copy. We're going to paste it right here, and we're going to log in. Now we are in the back end of our WordPress website. Now, before we go into installing Divi, let's do a few cleanup methods that I like to run just to start really fresh with our WordPress install. So here's what I do. I don't like to have all this kind of junk right here on my screen, and this is what throws a lot of people. So we're just going to dismiss this. We're going to minimize all of these, and then we're actually going to go to screen options up here and hide them. And you hide them by just unchecking it. All of a sudden, this screen is a lot cleaner. The next thing we want to make sure we do is change our WordPress password. So remember, Cloudways created a dummy account for us, so now we need to change our password to something we regularly use, if you would like to. So to do that, I'm going to go to Users. I'm going to go to All Users. I'm going to hover over my username right here and click Edit. It's going to bring up my profile right here. So this is the profile that was created for me when this WordPress was installed just now. And if we scroll down here, we can generate a new password, and it's going to make one for us, or we can put in our own. And there we go. Now, if you put in a password that's not very strong, you will have to confirm the use of the weak password, and then you will click Update Profile. And when you do that, a new email will be sent to whatever email address is linked right here, and you will confirm the password, and then from now on, when you log into your WP admin section, you will use the username above and this new password. And make sure you click Update Profile. Now let's go on back to the dashboard. You'll notice that WordPress, when it's installed, automatically creates a mock post if we wanted to create a blog. I'm going to trash that. You'll also notice that it creates a default privacy policy, which is cool to have, so I'm going to leave that, and then creates a sample page, but I'm going to go ahead and trash that. We're going to go into plugins, and you'll notice that it pre-installs 3 plugins. Now I'm going to delete this one, and I'm going to delete Hello Dolly. I'm going to leave this Breeze plugin. Now, what Breeze does in a really quick summary is it makes your site faster. It's actually custom built by Cloudways, and it works hand in hand to make your site load faster and work faster. Also notice when we're switching how fast this is. If you were on a shared hosting platform, it would be 7, maybe 10 seconds between each page load, and those add up when you're designing, okay? So we have cleaned up our dashboard a little bit. We've deleted the sample posts, we've deleted the sample pages, and now we are going to install Divi. If we look right now into Appearance and Themes, you're going to see that WordPress always comes pre-installed with these template 2019, 17, 16, and so on themes. Well, we don't want those. We want to use Divi, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to click this Add New button, and we're going to go up here to Upload Theme, and we're going to choose the file that we just downloaded. Remember, we just downloaded Divi to our computer. There it is, the full zip file. We're going to select Open, Install Now. And now Divi is being uploaded to our WordPress website. All the work's done for us. We don't have to touch it. from there, and in about 20 seconds, Divi has been installed on our WordPress website. You're going to see this screen. When you do, click Activate to start using the Divi theme. And now you'll notice we are using Divi. Let's X out of this here. And if you look over to the left, you're going to notice a new little option in our dashboard, which is for the Divi theme. Now let's go to our working website. Remember, it looked like this, but let's go ahead and hit refresh and see what it looks like now. So it looks a little bit different, still not cool, but we have our logo in the top left, we have a navigation link here, and then we have the Design by Elegant Themes bottom bar right here. So we have bought a domain name, we've bought hosting, we've installed WordPress, we've installed Divi, now we just gotta customize the darn thing and make it look really good. So we're going to go back to our WordPress dashboard. And we're going to do one last thing to make sure we're getting all the content and the updates we need, and that is to enter our Elegant Themes API key. And to do that, we're going to select Divi, we're going to select Theme Options, and this is going to take us to the Divi only options. You're going to see General, Navigation, Builder, Layout, things like this, and you're going to see a lot of cool, colorful options. We'll get into all this in a minute. It is not scary at all, don't worry. What we're going to do is we're going to go over to Updates, and here's where we will enter our username and API key. So enter your Elegant Themes username that you just created, and now enter your API key. But wait, Brandon, I don't have an API key. Very simple. If you will go over here and hover over this question mark, you can click Login. This will take you to the Elegant Themes site. Log in here. And here are your API keys. You can create as many as you want. Let's jump to the bottom. If you don't already have one, you're going to select Add New API Key. It's going to generate it, and then you're going to simply copy this. You're going to come back over to your WordPress, install, and you're going to paste it right here, and you're going to click Save Changes. So now you will be getting all the Divi updates. You won't have to worry about keeping it updated. You're going to have all your pre-made layout content, etc. So this is how I like to configure my Divi theme from here. I like to set up all my templates before I start customizing, and this is how you do that. Let's go over here to General. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to insert my logo. Now, if we go to our current site, you're going to see that the regular Divi logo is placed right there. Now, what if we want to change that? Well, I'm going to click Upload. I'm going to click Select Files. And then I'm going to navigate to my computer where I have my logo. I'm going to use this PNG right here. I'm going to select Open. And this has loaded my logo. I'm going to click Save Changes. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this testing website in an incognito browser. And the reason I want to do that is because an incognito browser does not save our website between changes so that the changes will always reflect. If I were to click over to the website right now, then you would just see the same logo as normal because our site has been cached by the browser. So I'm going to go up here, click File, New Incognito window, and then I'm going to paste in our website. And now you're going to see our logo up there at the top. So we have added our logo. Now let's go back to the back end. If you would like a fixed navigation bar, you can either enable that or disable that. If you're not sure what any of this stuff is, you can actually hover over this question mark and it will tell you. So we click that. By default, the navigation bar stays on top of the screen at all times. So you can go through here and pick out what things you want and what you don't want. Now I'm going to show you how I set it up, okay? The first thing I do is I construct my color palette. So I like to have black, I like to have white, and if you have any brand colors, put them here. So maybe you use this shade of blue as like your main color, and maybe this shade of orange is a secondary color. So maybe I would go right here. and maybe I use this green. Whatever you use, you can put your color palette right in here, and you'll see in a few minutes that we'll always have quick access to that, so we don't always have to be typing in these crazy codes. I usually leave all of this the same. If you have a WooCommerce page, you can kind of configure some of these options. The Google API key is for putting in your API key for your Google Maps. You can use Google fonts. Divi actually calls in Google fonts, so you can use those. You can choose to show your Facebook icon. Remember, we have this at the bottom of the page, so we can either turn that off or on. Here's where you can actually put in your Facebook profile URL. So if your Facebook business profile was facebook.com/mylawoffice, you could enter that there. Let's say your Twitter was the same, twitter.com/mylawoffice. You can put your social media links in here, and it will connect everything up so you don't have to insert it in manually. It's really, really cool. Finally, you can go down, and I don't really ever touch any of this. I will enable smooth scrolling. I will sometimes enable a back to the top button, which means if people scroll all the way down to the bottom, they can jump up really quick. And then I usually turn on minify and combine JavaScript files and CSS. It just makes your site go a little bit faster. Finally, here's a spot where you can put in custom code if you want to get a little bit nitty-gritty with your styling later on. A lot of times people don't even have to touch that. So we have now configured our front-end Divi theme, and I'm going to click Save Changes, and we're good to go. And when you scroll up to the top, you'll also see some other options. So you can click in navigation, and you can configure any navigation you want. Again, these question marks are here to help you in case you don't know what a link means. This is a little bit about the Divi Builder, which we are going to get into in a minute. Here are some options for layout, so you can choose to hide these, or you can choose to enable them for your post section. Here's where you can actually enable ads, so if you're doing any sort of banner ads or using AdSense, and other companies can display their ads on your website, you can put this information in here. Here is where you can configure some of the SEO for your site. So you can either choose how you want it to be displayed. You can choose how you want it separated. So some people do that little thing. Some people do a slash. Whichever you want is fine. You can also title your home page here. So you might do for loop home. And I might type in a creative website agency. Whatever you want to put there. We can go into some integrations. Now this is really cool because on a lot of WordPress themes, you actually have to enter in this code manually and it's just a mess, but Divi makes it really easy. So if you wanted to add in, let's say, some tracking codes for Google Analytics, you would just copy and paste your analytics code right here and it would automatically inject it into every page just like it needs to be set up, and you're good to go. If you make any changes here, again, click Save Changes. They save. And then again, we've already visited the Updates panel for our API key. So I click Save Changes again to be safe. And then we can go ahead and jump into the Theme Customizer. Now, when you get into this Theme Customizer, it's really cool. Down here, you can see what your site looks like responsively. Here's what it looks like on a tablet. Here's what it looks like on a mobile phone. And then, of course, on a desktop. And we can use this right here, these options, to further configure our website. So if we click General Settings, we can change our website name here. So if I wanted to type in For Loop Agency, we can change the tagline to something relevant. Website design, let's say. We're going to publish that so the changes are saved. Now this isn't going to change our domain name up here, this just changes the name that shows up on the search result pages. Next we can work with our layout, so you can click this to enable a box layout and you see that that changes it to a skinny, not quite full width section. We can also play with our website gutter width right here, so you can see there is some spacing that we can add here. I usually just leave this at 3. We can also play with our section height and our row height. We'll get into that soon. And we can change our theme accent color. If you have a certain brand color, a lot of times people will put this here, but you do not have to. I disabled the box layout. We don't want that for this. Finally, you can go into picking your typography. A lot of times I will set this body text to 16, and you can see it being changed on the right live as we go. You can change the body line height. You can change the header text size, which will change all your headings. I like to leave that about 36. Letter spacing, you can make them bold. You can actually change your default theme. So here are all the Google fonts that we can use. So you can go ahead and click into these, maybe find one you like. There are some pretty crazy ones in here, but I'm just going to keep it at default right now. That looks fine. You can go ahead and change in your default body text color if you want to. You can change your header default color if you want to, all kinds of things. And then finally, you can go and change your background and all that. So this is usually where I start. I'm going to go back and now take a look into the header. Now let's change our header up. Right now here's the default, but we can change it to a center header, which is what this looks like with our navigation and our logo centered. We can do a slide-in logo, which looks like this, all done automatically. Or we could do a full screen logo, which is our logo propagated. Let's send this back to default real quick. Full screen just spreads it out a little bit and gives us this slider again like that. So let's just keep it for the default now. We're all pretty used to seeing this, and I'm going to click back. Now here's where you can change your menu. So you can hide the logo image like that. You can change the height of the menu right here. So this is making it smaller. That might be cool. You can change the logo height. Right now it's at 54 pixels, but you can make just the logo smaller if you want. You can change the text size of the menu. Notice how the home word is getting smaller. Now it's getting bigger. Now it's smaller. Maybe I'll leave it about 14. You can change the fonts, the font styles, the text color, the active link color, all kinds of good stuff. So let's go back to the beginning of this. As you can see, there are lots of other ways to pre-configure these styles if you want to. You can configure your mobile styles. You can configure your tablet styles. If you want different section heights in your tablet, you can do that too. There's lots of options. But let's go ahead and start making an actual page. Remember to publish these changes so they save. And let's go back to our WordPress dashboard by clicking X. All right, so we've pre-configured our Divi theme. Now let's go into actually making a page. Now we're going to actually start designing our website. So the first thing we're going to do is to create the template pages. And I always use the same for template pages to start any website. So the first one I'm going to add is going to be the home page. So let's just add the title of home. And we're going to select use the Divi builder. Now the Divi builder has been activated, and you are going to see it actually takes us to our page. We're going to click start building. Once we enable our visual builder, we're presented with three options inside Divi. We can build a page from scratch, we can choose a pre-made layout, or we can clone an existing page. Now we don't have an existing page because we're just getting started, so we're going to ignore that option for now. And I actually want to show you the power of Divi by choosing a pre-made layout to get us started. I do this a lot when I just want to start with some inspiration. It's hard for me to start with a blank page sometimes, and I just need a little bit of input. And so this is great. As you can see, because we put in our API key earlier, we have access to 94 layout packs at this writing and 703 total layouts. And if you scroll down, you can see all the different layouts we have. It's very cool. So you might have a juice shop, or you might be a babysitter, or you might be setting up a marathon or a conference, or you might have a boutique. There are lots of different options for lots of different businesses that you can choose from here if you're a doctor's office. Now the cool thing is you can also click into these. So let's say if you wanted to pick a animal shelter. So you can click this, and now you're in this layout, and you can see all the different layouts in this animal shelter pack. There's an about page, blog page, contact page, and so on. You can also come over here and view the live demo to make sure it's what you want. So you can click in and you can see this page is built for you. So there's the logo, here's the navigation. You can scroll down and just see exactly what this looks like, and then just X out when you're done. So for the sake of this example, let's go ahead and pick out one of the layouts from this pre-made section. I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to go ahead and pick this digital product one. So we'll click that. We'll see that there are a few options, and I'm just going to select the home page. So you select the home page, and then you click Use this layout. It's going to build it for you. It says estimated time remaining is 1 minute, but it takes about 10 seconds. And in just a minute, we're going to see this layout built live for us, and we can go ahead and start editing pretty much a fully crafted page. All right, as we can see, that took about 10-15 seconds, and our page is built for us. Look, this page is already built and ready to go. That's the power of Divi. Now let's scroll back to the top. We can also see that these pages are instantly editable. So if I wanted to change this tag to maybe 600,000 users, all you have to do is put your cursor there, delete, and you can choose 600,000 users. Or you could even make this all capital. So it's really easy to edit this. Now we can also highlight maybe this word and we can make it bold. So see, now that word is bolded. We can italicize it, underline it. We can even change the centering. I don't know if that'll do anything here. Maybe a little bit right there. Let's take it back to the center. X out. So we can already control things here. We can even control the color. Now, do you see anything about these colors? Anything special? This is the actual default palette we put together when we first were configuring our Divi settings in the beginning. So that's another really cool and thoughtful part of the Divi theme, is that you can put in your brand colors at the beginning and be able to easily use them across your whole website. Really, really cool, really smart thinking. So let's turn these back off. Now this is how Divi works. Let's go here to the bottom. We can toggle these page settings on and off like that by clicking that middle button. We can save the draft. We can publish it to our website so that it would be live. And we can do a few other things that we'll cover in a minute. But look to this left section. This left section has some different icons, and these are our responsive icons. So right now we're in desktop view. If you hover over that, you can see that. But let's say we wanted to see what our site looked like on a tablet. Well, we can click it, and that's exactly what it looks like on an iPad, let's say. We can come here and see what it looks like on a cell phone. So if you scroll down, you'll notice that the themes and the layouts in this whole Divi theme is completely responsive. Let's zoom back out, and then let's zoom out to desktop. Really, really cool, really, really convenient. Now we can click this magnifying glass right here, and it will zoom out and kind of give us an overview of our page, so it's a little bit easier to see our design. And we can see it in all its glory right here. And we can click this button and it sends it into wireframe view. Now wireframe is really cool because it kind of gives us an overview of how Divi works on the back end. So if you'll notice, we have different sections, and these sections are in blue. We can make them smaller right here so we can kind of see an overview for our page. And we can expand them back out when we want to see them more clearly. Now in each of these sections, remember the sections are blue, in each of these sections you have rows, and rows are in green. Inside each of these rows you have what are called modules. Modules are in the gray boxes, and modules can be things like text box or buttons. So in this row we have text, text, and a button. And if we scroll back out to the desktop, we can see in this top section right here is our text module, another text module, and our button. So looking in the wireframe is a really good overview of how your Divi page is set up. You'll notice in this section called feature, there is a row that has two columns, and column 1 is a text module and a button module, and in column 2 is an image. Now we can scroll back out and see that that happens right here. So here's our text module with a button, and then there's the image. So that's how it works. Also notice if we hover over each one, it will highlight it for us. So here is our section. If we move in, here is our row. And then if we move in further, here is our text module 1, text module 2, and text module 3. Play with this a little bit and you'll get really, really used to it. So let's go into editing. Let's go ahead and go into desktop mode. Now, we can go ahead and do some drag and drop editing if we want to. So notice I can change like the padding right here, and it will automatically change the configuration of the background image for us. Now let's say I wanted to reset that. All you have to do is hit Command Z if you're on a Mac, or Control Z if you are on a PC, and it will take us back to how we originally had it, which is like that. Really cool. Now let's go into actually editing this section first. Let's start with this section. So remember, we hover over it, and it comes up in blue, and you'll see these icons up here, and this is what these do. This trash can is pretty obvious. This deletes the section. Oh no, we deleted it. Let's bring it back. Well, remember, Command Z will undo what we just did. This is the save section. So if we wanted to use this particular section somewhere else on our website, we could save it here. So I could call this the homepage top section, and I can save it to our library. And now we can use it on any page, and it will come up and look exactly like this, and it's individually editable on that page. So if we edit it on another page, it will not change on this page, so we'll be good to go. It's a really quick way to copy sections without having to build them from scratch. Now these two windows right here is a duplicate section, so if you click that and we scroll down, you'll see that this section has been duplicated down here. Let's go ahead and trash it. We don't need that. This little compass looking icon allows us to drag this page. So let's say we wanted to move this top section underneath. We can move it right there, and now this section is underneath this product section. So that's a really cool drag and drop ability, but let's hit Apple Z or Control Z and redo that. Now is the big time icon, this settings control icon, okay, the section settings. When you click this, the settings box is going to open up, and you're going to see all the ways you can control and manipulate Divi. Now, if you don't like where this settings box is placed, you can click this button and it allows you to expand it to the full screen. You can click it again and move it anywhere you want to, but I like to hit this button, which anchors the section settings to the left of the screen so I can still see what I'm doing over here. Again, it's still editable over here. If I wanted to delete that word, I could, so you don't have to just work in this box over here, but let's see what you can do. Let's say in this section, remember we're controlling this blue section only. It's not going to control the row. It's not going to control these modules right here. It's just controlling this section right here. Think of it as this big background image. Let's say I wanted to change up this image. Well, I'm going to select background, and here's the image we're using right now. Let's say I wanted to change this. Let's say I wanted to go in, so I can click this little icon, and then here are some available backgrounds right here. Let's say I didn't like any of these, so I wanted to upload a background. You're just going to click upload files. You're going to select the file from your computer. I've got one right here. Open it. It's going to upload, and then you can click upload an image, and it will change this background. See, that is the background we just uploaded. You can click use parallax effect, and when it does, you see how that's now moving in tandem? Now you lose the gradient because of how the JavaScript works. You can also select CSS parallax. So instead of moving kind of in tandem like that, see how the background's moving a little bit slower than the foreground? You can just have it like this. So the background stays by itself, and now that moves. So it's really, really cool. Now let's say if we wanted to change the background color. Let's say if we wanted to make it green if we wanted to. All right, really, really cool. We can also add a gradient. So what is a gradient? Well, a gradient is this kind of little blurry thing right here. Now you can choose the different colors you want it to be. Let's say if we wanted to do orange, and we can go into this second section and click this blue. And then we need to change the opacity here. And you can see that blue coming in. Really, really cool. We can choose the different gradient types here. We can make this linear, and you can see that changes to more of a line. We can also change the direction of the gradient if we wanted to kind of flip that. We can also change the start position. So if we didn't want this blur going on right here, we can set these both at 50%, and you will start to see an actual line form right there. See, so that's really cool. Sometimes people want to use that effect. And again, you can change how this gradient looks. So you could even do it half like that. And it's just really, really cool and easy to use. We can also choose whether we want the gradient above the background image or not. We don't have a background image in currently, so it will not affect that. But let's put one in. Again, let's just add a background image. Let's add this one that we were just working with. Go back to our gradient, and we can remove it just like that. So it's really, really cool and easy to use. So I'm going to kind of blur this back, and then this is what it looks like. Now, I want to get back to where I was, so let's just keep hitting Apple Z, or you can utilize another really cool feature of Divi, which is the timeline feature. So what you're going to do is you're going to click into the section settings right down here. You're going to click this little clock icon, And here are all the edits we've made to our page, and it gives us the time. So if we want to go back, we can click that and it takes us right back to where we were. Now we could even go right here and we can see the edited section. So it's really, really cool to go back to different spots of your layout if you get too far ahead. Let's take a look at some other settings we can change to our section. We can also change the design and the layout. So if we wanted to add an inner shadow, we could add one there. If we wanted to change the sizing of our section, we can do so here. We just drag it. Look, we've made it 35% of the width of the screen. And we can even set it to the middle. So all of this is just drag and drop. If we wanted to add in a divider, look how cool this is. So we want to add a divider to the top section that looks like this. And it creates this really cool CSS divider. We can change the color of it. We can add different colors in here. We can change the height of the divider. We can change how many times it repeats. Really, really cool option. We can even kind of come down here and choose like a little cloud looking icon. Maybe we're a cloud-based company. Change the height of the clouds. We can flip the clouds vertically and horizontally if we want to. There's lots of options. We can even add a divider to the bottom. So let's go ahead and add one of these little pointy triangles to the bottom. We can make it this light blue if we want to. We can change the height of the dividers. Just a ton of options. I'm going to remove these for now. Let's go back to the top and remove the top. And that is how we can control it. We can even control things like the padding or the margin. Let's say if we wanted to move this section down. Notice that you can either click that or we can type in a number here, 200 pixels. We can even make it so that the top and the bottom are the exact same margin. So see, we've pushed this section down 200 pixels. Now let's just delete those if we want to, and let's unchain them. We can also add a border to this section if we wanted to. So let's say we wanted to add a border with 11 pixels, and we wanted to make it a green border, and then we wanted to even round off the corners. See how those corners are getting rounded off? So that is a really cool feature as well. You can even change it to a grooved border, or you can change it to a dashed border. So lots of options right there. Again, this is all just super point and click easy. Let's take off the border. Let's drag it back down to 0. No border involved. We can also add different filters to this background. This is a kind of newer feature. So we can change the saturation, and you can see that this changes our background image. We can change the brightness of the image by scrolling back and forth. We can even kind of give it a sepia tone. We can change the opacity so you can see totally through it. We can blur the background if you want to, so it kind of like makes everything lose focus. Lots of options. We can change the blend mode. If you guys are familiar with Photoshop, you'll know kind of how that works. We can change just how it looks overall with that. Let's take it back. We can even, this is really, really cool, control the animation style. So when our page loads, if we want this section to fade in, we can click fade, and it will give us a little preview of what that looks like. We can also have it bounce in. We can have it fold in, flip, zoom, slide, or even roll. And the cool thing about this, like let's say we wanted to slide up, we can have it repeat, or we can have it loop, which is a little bit annoying there, so let's not do that. We can choose how long we want this to last. So if we wanted it to zoom in for 2 seconds, we could do that. If we wanted to delay it when our page loaded, we could do that. If we want to change the intensity, we can change the intensity so it doesn't fade in too much. And then we can even change the curves and the different way that it loads in. So lots of options here. The animation is really cool. Finally, we can go into our advanced sections, and if we wanted to give this section an ID or a class, we could do it there. We can even write our custom CSS here, and we can change the visibility. So if we didn't want this section to show on our phones, let's say we wanted another kind of homepage section to show on our phones, we can disable this section on our phones and it won't show up. So it's very, very cool, very, very useful. Let's go in here and take off this border, these rounded corners that we have. You can also just highlight it and add 0, and that will take it all away. So as you can see, there's lots of different ways to customize this. If we're using the wireframe view, you can change this label. So we could put really cool header, and then if we went to our wireframe view, you would see that it has changed to really cool header. And this is just a good way to keep track of where the different sections are if we're using the wireframe view. So that's how we can edit a section. Now you'll notice the row is the exact same thing. So let's go into the row settings and we can change the background of our row. Let's add a white background to it. And this will kind of show us how our row looks. So you can see our row in action with the different modules in it. We can make it blue if we want to. We can make it this green color right here. So you can see the row outlined by doing something like this. We can also add a gradient to it if we wanted to. We could even put an image on a row right here. So really, really cool. We can even use a parallax effect inside that row, so it kind of creates an image frame effect. Really, really neat stuff. So let's go ahead and make this back to where it was. We can even control individual backgrounds. So if this was a 2-column row, we could change the background for column 1 and column 2 differently. They could be different kinds of colors. So that gives us the ultimate control. There's really nothing you can't do with this theme. Let's go ahead and remove this gradient too. All we need to do is hover over this and click that trash can and it takes us back to where we are. So we've edited our section, we've edited our row, and you can also drag these. So we're adding some padding there. And you can also select this chain and look, it will control the padding on the top and bottom at the same time. If you deselect it, then you're just controlling the padding for the top only. So that's really, really cool. Remember, Apple Z or Control Z to go back to where we were. Now let's work with these modules. Let's change how these texts look. So I'm going to select this module right here. You can see I'm highlighting over it. And here is our text. You'll see this is a heading 1 text, and it says products that empower over 500,000 users. If we wanted to change that to 600,000, we could do that, so on and so forth. Now we can also change the background to this individual module. Let's say if we wanted to make it this green, we could. And now this module, this text module, the background of it is green. And let's take it back to where it was just by deleting that. Very cool. Now let's go ahead and kind of play with this text a little bit. So what we're going to do, you'll see we're in this text module settings. We're going to go to the design, and here's all the options we have for our text. Now remember, this was a header 1, so we're going to go to heading text, and we're going to select heading 1. If this was header 2, we would select that, so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and edit our H1. So right now we have the Poppins font, but if we wanted to change that to something like Times New Roman, we could select that, and it changes it to Times New Roman. We could even change the weight to light. Let's change it back to where we were. Here are our recent fonts that we use, so if we ever want to get back, we can get back really quickly. We can also upload a custom font. Maybe you have a special custom font you created. You can upload it to Divi and use it everywhere. So let's go back to our original Poppins font. Again, we can change the font weight of it. Let's go back to where it was, which I believe was semi-bold. We can also change it to all capital letters if we wanted to right here. We can underline it. We can strike through the text. We can change the alignment, so you can go left, center, right, or you could justify it. So that's really cool. Let's go back to center. Here's where you can change the heading text color. You can make it black. You can make it purple. Remember, these are our pre-picked colors, but you can also go in and click this big button right here and do a totally custom dragged color if you want to. So notice that our font is changing as we drag it across the screen. So that's really, really cool. Let's go back to white. We can also change the text size. So if right now this has a text size of 3.5 view widths, but we can drag that if we want to and make it bigger. We can make it as big as we want, or we can make it smaller. Now this is really cool too. Let's say if we wanted to set this to 36, we can also come in here and manually change it. Let's do that right now, 36 pixels. And if we want to incrementally change it, we can click these buttons right here. Now this is the size of the text on the desktop, but let's say if we wanted it bigger on a tablet, well, we can control these individually. So you can see on a tablet, we have a size 38 header. But let's say we wanted to make it really, really big right here, 90 pixels. Well, check this out. If we go back to a desktop, it's going to stick with 36. But if someone switches over to a tablet, it's going to be 90. And then if someone switches to a phone size, it's going to be 28. So you can have different font sizes for your different responsive sections. Let's take it back to where it was right about 28, I believe. Perfect. You can also change the letter spacing. So see, we can spread them apart by dragging. We can also change the line height if we want to. You can see our headers spreading out. We can add a text shadow, so you can change the different shadows or have nothing. You can also play with the shadow. So if we wanted a really intense one, we can up the opacity and you'll see a big shadow coming out. We can change the vertical length like that. We can change the horizontal length like that. We can even change the blur strength. So we can make it a little bit more 3D, a little bit more smoky, burnt in like that. It's just really, really cool. You can do everything. We can also change the sizing of this module. So let's say I wanted to keep this section 100% width, this row 100% width, but I just wanted to change the width of this module. Well, what you can do is you can come in and just change the width of this module. So right now, this module is now 1%, but the section has not changed. It's just the module. You can also move it to the left or move it to the right. Let's go back to the center, make it 100%, looks good. Now here is our custom margin and padding for this module only. So if I wanted to add 100 pixels of padding to the top, I can do that right here. And you can make it the same on both sides, and then you can revert back to where we were. Let's go back to 0, 0, and unlock it. Again, you can add a border to just this module if you want to. Let's add a little bit of a border. So we can see that border coming in as we drag and drop it. You can change the color of the border. I mean, you can just do everything with this theme. Let's say I wanted to add a box shadow to this text module. Well, you can add one right here, and you can see that there has been a little box shadow put under the module. And we can change the style of that, and we can change the blurs and the horizontal positions and everything like that. So you just have complete drag and drop control over your theme as you go. Let's go ahead and get rid of this text shadow right here. We can click this circle X and get rid of it. Also, we can control the individual animation of just a module. So let's say we just wanted this text module only, this headline, to slide in. That means that only this headline will slide, bounce, fold, roll in, whatever we want to do. And again, you can change the duration of the animation, the delay, and things like that. So it's just really cool, gives you a lot of options. Now let's go into this button. Let's edit the button. So we're going to hover over the button. We're going to click this. If we wanted to duplicate the button, we could. So we just duplicated this button module. We could duplicate it again, but we don't want to do that, so let's just trash them. Let's go in and edit this button. Let's change the text of this. So if you wanted to add $10 to the price of this product, you could right there, and it changes over here. We can go into the design of the button. Remember, look up here, we're in the button settings. We can use custom styles for our button. So to do that, we need to click this button section, and we can choose no custom styles if we want to, or we can highlight that. So if you don't see these options, it's probably because that's slid over. We can change the size of the text inside just the button only right there. Let's go back to where we were. We can change the color of the text inside the button. If we wanted to do orange or purple, we could do that. Let's go back to white. You can change the background color. You can add a gradient just to that button if you wanted to, or you could even add an image to that button if you wanted to. Let's add that beach image. So see, that button is now has our image inside it, but we're not going to keep that. It doesn't look very good. You can also add a border if you want to. So let's go ahead and add a border, and let's make it white so you can see what that looks like. You can change the radius of the border so it looks a little bit more squared out. I mean, gosh, you can just really do anything. Another thing we can do that Divi recently added is changing the button and any module on a hover state for everything. And to do that, you click on the arrow right here. So now you have the option to select whether you want to change this module in its default state or its hover state. So let's say the background for a button, we wanted it this color blue, but when we hovered over it, we wanted it to be orange. So there we go. Let's go back to default. Now when we hover over it, it's orange. So there's just so much you can do. So let's go ahead and take off that orange. We're just going to trash it right there. And we're going to click this green arrow, and we're going to save these changes and save the draft to the page. You can do that whenever you want to. Let's say we wanted to save this page for later, or we thought that we might want to use it on another site. Well, we can actually export this page, and we can call this our special product page. we can export the builder layout, and it's going to download to our computer so that we could send this to someone. Let's say we had a client that we were designing this site for. We could send it out to them and they could import it into their Divi builder and it would be ready to go, looking just like this. Really, really cool. Now there are a few other things you can do. We have complete control over our visual builder as well. So if I wanted to click these 3 buttons, you can look at your builder settings right here. So you can choose the page creation flow. Remember how we had 3 options at the beginning? We could build from scratch or build a layout. You can change that from here. You can give me a choice, or you can just automatically go into one. You can also choose how you want your page to look in different hover modes. So look at this. We turn these on and they appeared at the bottom of our screen. Let's X out of this. And you can choose how you want your mouse to function on the page. So let's say I wanted it to enable grid mode. Now you can actually see our sections, our rows, and the different modules we have all the way down the screen. So sometimes that helps if you're like adjusting padding, let's say, and you wanted to look at what you've done there. You can see that we've added some padding there. Or if you wanted to add some padding, or maybe duplicate this module right here. You can see we've duplicated it down here, so on and so forth. So some people like using that. You can also have it show on hover. So when you hover over it, you can actually see the different rows and the modules that we have in these sections. Let's go ahead and deselect these. So we go back to our regular default one. Now let's say we wanted to add our own custom section. Well, how could we do that? Well, let's go to any part of our page and let's hover. And when we see these plus icons show up, that means that we can add to these. So let's add a section below this section right here. This get everything you need with one tool section. So we're going to select this blue plus button, add new section. And it's going to give us 3 options. We can add a regular section, a specialty section, or a full width section. Let's add a regular section. So we've just added a new section right here, and now it asks us to insert a row. So we can choose a full width 1-column row, we can choose a 2-column row, or a 3-column row. Let's go ahead and add a 2-column row. Once we do that, we can see that our 2 columns have been created, and we need to add modules to this row. So let's go ahead and add a button, and this is our default button. We can change the text right here, so we can say get special offer. And we can choose what we want this button to link to. So let's say we had an offer page. We could click mypage.com/getoffer. So when people click this button, it would take them to this page. And we can choose whether we want it to be in the same window or open a new tab. We can also change the design of our button. So let's say we want to center it in this module. Now it's centered. We can also go in and change the text. We can add custom styles to the button. Remember, slide that over and we can start editing our button right here. So let's keep it about 20 pixels incrementally. We can change the color, or we can go back to what we had, reset it like that. We can change the background color, the width. Let's go ahead and change this border radius to match. So let's go ahead and make it a circle like all the other ones are. And over here in this module, let's add a text module. So I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to click text. Here's our text. Divi actually pre-fills this with dummy content just to give us an overview of what this looks like. You can also turn that option off if you wanted to. So I'm going to highlight all this and I'm going to type click the button for a special offer. Now this is a paragraph, but if we wanted to change it to a header, we can highlight it and choose heading 3. And let's go ahead and customize this. Let's go into design, heading text, remember it's a header, and it's an H3, a header 3. We can control the text size here if we want to. We can control the letter spacing, all the usual things. We can center it if we want to. Let's go ahead and move the header spacing back. And let's go ahead and change this to a dark kind of like navy blue. So I'm going to click this blue right here, but I'm going to make it a little darker. And that's how that looks. We can also add another text module below this. So to do that, we'll hover over this and we'll click the plus button and we'll scroll down to text, and we can even say, trust me, you'll like this. We can center it here if we want to, but I always like to go over to design and just kind of always design from one place. Remember, this was a paragraph. So instead of working in our headers, which are H1, H2, up to H6. We're just going to be working in our text. So we can change the size here, or we could do what we want to do, which is center it. Just get in these and start playing with these options right here. Oops, let's bring our text back up. There we go. And then let's say we were like, I don't like this certain module, we can delete it. Or if you didn't like the section as a whole, you can delete the section, and then we're back to where we started from, and we can save our draft. So as you can see, Divi is extremely functional. All right, we are back in the back end of our WordPress website, and here's what I've done. I have taken the little pre-made layout we just made, and I have cleared everything on this site. So we don't have any posts, we don't have any pages, we don't have any media, and what I want to do is take us through how to build that site we saw at the beginning of the video. So you're going to learn exactly how to pre-set up your site, you're going to learn how to structure your pages, use layouts and everything, so let's dive on in. The first thing I do when I'm preparing a Divi website is I set up all the presets that I want. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go into the Divi Theme option section right here, and we're going to set up our layouts. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to upload a logo. So we're going to click upload, and we're going to select the files that we want. Now I have a pre-made file with all of the site assets I'm going to be using, and it is in this sample website assets folder. Bring it down, and we're going to upload the logo. So that's always the first thing I like to do, start really clean. We're going to give it a title over here. That's good for SEO purposes and for screen readers if someone with a disability is using this. So I'm going to retitle it the IT Max logo, and I'm going to add this as alt text as well. Now the website we're building is a sample website for a local IT company. So essentially we're building a local business website. This applies to any business though. So we have uploaded our logo. I'm going to go ahead and enable the fixed navigation bar, and now we're going to pick our color palette because this is going to help us on down the road. It's going to show pre-populated colors in our visual builder, so it's going to be a lot simpler to set them up. So I'm going to go and copy and paste in a color palette that I found, and we're going to get started with that right now. So what I'm going to do is change this black to a little bit of an off black. I like to use 333 as a hex code. So you can see it's not quite black. It's a little bit lighter than that because it's not as harsh on the eyes. I'm going to do the same thing with this white. I'm going to go in and change it from pure white to EF, and that is a little bit of an off-white, but it's not going to be as stark on our eyes. Now let's go ahead and copy and paste in the other colors we want to use here. So for our first color, we want to use this hex code. So I'm just going to copy that, and we're going to paste it right here. And then I'm going to just keep going down the line. All right, so they're all pasted in, and for this last color, which I don't need, I'm just going to drag the opacity down to nothing, and then these are the only colors that we're working with. So we've got our logo set, we've got our color palette picked. Now we just need to go down, and I want to check enable use Google Fonts, show the Facebook icon, and we can add all that. Now I'm going to add in the Facebook profile URL. So let's say it was facebook.com/itmax. I would save that. I'm just going to copy it, paste it, and my Twitter profile might be twitter.com/itmax. If you've got Google+, so on and so forth. And then I'm going to go down and enable this back to the top button, enable smooth scrolling, and that is it for now. We're just going to save the changes. And now we have essentially set up our Divi presets, and that's really all I touch in here. Now the next thing we need to do is set up our typography. So we're going to come over here into the Divi hover, and we're going to select Theme Customizer so we can set up our typography. Now I'm going to go into General Settings right here and click Typography. I'm going to change this body text size. I'm going to drag it to 16, and you can see the changes being reflected live over here. I'm going to change my header text size to 34. That looks good. I'm going to leave all this the same, but as you can see, if you drag this, you can kind of change how the letter spacing is. You can change the line height right there. So you can do any kind of these changes you want. But this is just going to help us preset our template so we don't have to do as much work when we go into actually using the builder. For the header font, I am going to scroll down, and I am going to drag this to make it a little bit faster. We're going to scroll down to Montserrat, which is a Google font, and we are going to pick that one for our header. And for our body font, we are going to just use Open Sans. So I'm going to drag this down to the O's, and we're going to pick Open Sans. So we're good there. And the rest of it, I'm just going to leave as is. Make sure you click Publish. Once we publish it, we're going to X out. This is going to take us back to our WordPress dashboard. And this is what I always do. I always set up the exact same 4 pages, and I set up 3 dummy posts. So essentially, we're just using this as our jumping off point because these 4 pages are typically what most websites have. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a home page. So click Add New. And then when it takes you to this back-end builder, we're just going to call it Home. And we're going to click Publish, and we're going to click it again. So this page is published. Now we're going to come up here and hover over New and add a new page. And we're going to create an About page. So type About, click Publish again. And our About page bones have been created. Let's add another new page, and let's add a Contact page. So we're going to type Contact, publish twice. Then finally, we're going to create a blog page. So I'm going to add a new page, and we're going to call it Blog, publish twice. And we have now set up our dummy pages. So if we scroll over here and take a look at our pages, we have got our Home, Blog, About, and Contact page ready to go. Now I'm going to create some dummy posts for our blog, just so we can see some examples of what it looks like. I'm going to add new. Let's call it. All right, and now we want to set a featured image. So let's go over here, click Set Featured Image. Let's pick one of these images that might convey a little information about our blog post here. Looks good. Now all we want to do is click Publish, click it again, and we have now created our first dummy blog post. You can also actually use the Divi builder to build out blog posts. So just like you can use it to construct a single page, you can also use them to construct individual blog posts or even blog templates if you want them all to look the same. So let's add another one. Let's go up here to New. We'll click New Post, and let's create post number 2. And let's add a featured image. And again, we're going to publish this and then publish again. And after that, we will create our third and final dummy post to use for creating this website. New post. Add a title. We'll add a featured image. And we'll click Publish twice. So if we go back over here to our post section, all posts, we can see that we have created the 3 dummy posts right here, and they will now show up in our blog pages and any blog sections we publish. So the next thing I want to do after we create these is we're going to change our permalinks, because let's scroll over to how our site looks right now. Right now up top, we've got all these links, but if we click on them and we click on, let's say, Contact, if you look in this address bar, it says cloudwaysapps.com/page ID equals 19. We don't want it to say that. We want it to say Contact or About or Blog or whatever, depending on what our page is. So here's what we do. Let's go back to our WordPress dashboard. Over here, we're going to hover over Settings, and then we're going to click on Permalinks. This will probably be checked plain. We want to change that to Post Name, scroll down, and click Save Changes. Now let's go back and look at our sample site. Now if we click Refresh on our sample site, we'll see that our permalinks have all changed. Now it reads Contact, this reads Blog, this reads About, so on and so forth. So we've set our permalinks, we're looking good. Let's go back to our WordPress site. Now all I want to do is make sure that my correct menu is completed and my correct navigation is completed. So we're going to go to Appearance, and we're going to click Menus, and we're going to set up our navigation menus. When you get to this screen, you're going to want to give it a name. You can give it any name. I'm just going to call it Main Nav, and I'm going to create it. So now I've created the menu. Now I need to add pages to it. So come to the left side and highlight the pages you want: Blog, Contact, About, Home, and we're going to add them over here by clicking Add to Menu. So we've put together our main menu. What we want to do is now we need to say where we want this navigation displayed. So you're going to select Display Location, Primary Menu. We're going to click Save Menu. And then if we go over to our main navigation that we just saw and click Refresh, we can see that the menu we just created is now up here. Now let's go back and drag it around a little bit. So I want to make home first, so all you're going to do is drag it up. I want about to be second, so we're just going to drag it up. And I want blog to be third and contact fourth. Now what if I wanted to create a drop-down menu? Let's say I wanted the about page to be in a drop-down menu below home. All you're going to do is hold down the left button and drag it in, and you have created a drop-down menu. Let's save this and go back to our other page and see it in action. So I'm going to refresh. And as you can see, next to home, a down arrow has been placed, and there is our about drop-down menu. Looking good, but let's go ahead and lay it out how it was. So let's drag this back, and let's save our menu. Now the last thing we need to do before we start building is to tell WordPress what our home page is. So to do that, we're going to go over to Settings. We're going to go to Reading, click it, and then we're going to change your home page displays to a static page, and we're going to set it to the home that we just created. We want to save this, and then if we go back to our page now, it should all be set up and working properly. Let's hit refresh. We are at our home page and it displays home. We're looking good. Now we are ready to start building out our site. So let's go ahead and build the home page. What we're going to do is navigate back to our Divi theme. We're going to select pages. We are going to select the home page. Go ahead and click that. And now here is the editor for our home page. And to get building, we are going to select edit with the Divi builder. What this does is this brings us into the actual visual builder for Divi. You can click start building, and let's get down to the brass tacks for our site. Here are those three familiar options we're really used to seeing. I'm going to select build from scratch because we don't have a page yet, so we need to build this one from scratch. Start building. Here is the default section and row that the visual builder creates automatically, but what I want to do is I want to add a new section below it. I just always add a new section and then I delete this one in a second, so let's do that. Let's add a new section, and here are our three options for adding sections: regular, specialty, and full width. Let's go ahead and select full width. Now we need to put a module inside of that full width section we just created. So let's go ahead and select full width header, and here is our pre-populated header. So again, you can use this modal window anywhere. You can drag it around to get it out of the way. You can click this button here to make it full screen. Or you can do what I do and click this right button and it snaps it to the left, and we've got a responsive window over here. So let's go ahead, click this check mark, delete this section, and we are ready to start building our site from the ground up. Little tip before we go any further: it's always safe to save your work. So you can do that two ways. You can go down here and click on this three-dot button and click save, or you can click Command S on a Mac or Control S on a PC and save it that way in a shortcut. Shortcuts are going to be your best friend when using Divi. It's going to really speed up your workflow. Alright, so we've got our page set up. So let's start changing a few things. Well, the first thing I want to do is add a title. So let's think of a headline for our new website. What if we typed Small Business IT Management? Alright, looking good. Let's add a little content down here. How about something a little bit relevant to our business? Now I want to change this button text. I want to type something a little bit more call to action-y, maybe learn more. So let's go ahead and edit this button. Again, move your mouse a little bit and this gray window will pop up. So here are the editing controls for our section. And if we hover over our module, here are the editing controls for our module. Let's go ahead and click this wheel. And here is all of a sudden all the things we've been typing in. Let's go ahead and change this button number 1 link text. Let's go ahead and type learn more. And let's add a second button, and maybe this one says contact us. Looks like our your content goes here got changed. Let's type back what we had in there. Awesome. And as we can see, that's being edited over here in real time. Now let's change this around a little bit. Remember, we're still in our module controllers. Let's go ahead and change this layout. So I'm going to click layout, and I want to make the text and logo centered. All right, that's looking a lot better. We can also click make full screen. What this does is inserts a little JavaScript code and makes this section right here the full height of our browser window, no matter what the screen size is, using that. So it's pretty cool. We can also add a scroll down icon. So I can slide this to yes, and we can see over here it's added a scroll down icon. You can change how the icon looks in this box, but I'm going to stick with this circle with the downward facing arrow. You can also change the color, so it can be green or orange, or it could be gold. Let's keep it white for right now. Here's how you change the size of the icon. So you can drag it and drop it to however you want it. Let's set it to about 50. That looks pretty good. You can also change the opacity of it by clicking this little eyedropper tool and sliding this up or down. And as you can see, the opacity of that scroll down icon is being changed. Let's go ahead and set it about 75. That looks pretty good. We're going to click this green Save Changes button, and just for the heck of it, hit Command S to save our work. Now let's go ahead and mess around with our design a little bit more. So let's hover over this module and let's change some of this heading text and the way it looks. So I'm going to go back to my design tab. I'm going to scroll down to the title text and let's go ahead and make this bold. Looks a little bit more like a title. Let's go ahead and change our title text size. We're just going to drag it to about right here. It looks pretty good. You can also use these draggers to change the letter spacing or the line height and all kinds of good stuff. You can change the color of the text right here to whatever you want. You can rearrange the alignment with these title text alignment buttons. Let's go ahead and make this white again. We can also add a title text shadow if we wanted to around our letters. You can change everything, the horizontal length, the vertical length. You can even change the blur strength and the color of the shadow. But for right now, let's not have a title text shadow. Just click this little circle with a line through it button and we're back. Now this is looking cool, but let's go ahead and add a little bit of a background gradient. So let's scroll back up to the content section, scroll down to background, and right now we've got this blue color, but let's go ahead and add a gradient. So we're going to click on this gradient button, add a background gradient. As you can see, it adds in a pretty cool looking one itself. But let's make that our brand colors. So I'm going to hover over this blue and choose our brand blue. I'm going to hover over this color. And if I clicked on this, it would make the bottom of that orange, green, so on and so forth. But I'm actually going to select the same color. But we're going to slide the opacity of this bottom one. And we can see that gradient start to come out. See that? Looking a lot better. You can also change whether you want your gradient linear or more radial, kind of coming out from the center. And you can even change the gradient direction. So that's more on the top of the light color, and here is the bottom. And you can also slide the start positions if you want more of a solid line like that. But we're going to keep our 0 and 100%. So it's looking a lot better. Let's go ahead and change those buttons up. Let's go back to our design. We're going to scroll down to button 1. We're going to slide this to yes for use custom styles. Let's keep our text color this off-white, but let's change the background color to our button. Let's change it to our brand orange color. Let's go ahead and remove this border by sliding this 2 down to 0. As you can see, we don't have a button border anymore. And let's go ahead and make this border radius 100% so that it's a circle. Awesome, that looks great. Now, what happens if we hover over this button? Okay, we can see that an arrow is added. Let's say if we wanted to change the background for this hover state. What we want to do is go up to our button 1 background color. And you see these 2 buttons to the side, this arrow and then this circular refresh. Let's hit this arrow. All of a sudden, we can choose how we want our button to look by default or on a hover state. So if we select hover, and we change this background to, let's say, this orange, but a little bit lighter. You can see over here that when we're on hover, we get this little bit lighter section. And when we go back to default, it's bright orange. Now let's see it in action. We come over here, we hover, and it has lost its opacity. So that's what we want to do. That's how you can change the 2 different hover states. You can also change anything on hover. You can add a border, you can add text shadow, so on and so forth. But for right now, we're just going to keep it like this. Let's go ahead and change button 2 to match. So we're going to click button 2. we're going to enable custom styles. We're going to scroll down and we're going to change the border radius to 100 just so they both got that circle. But let's leave it at that and not draw attention because we want to draw attention to this Learn More button. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Save, and then we're going to add our next section, which is a blurb with icon section. So to do this, click on this purple plus button. We're going to add a new section, and we're just going to add a regular section. Most of the time, you'll probably be working in regular sections. So we want to add a headline, a subline, and then 3 blurb columns. So let's go ahead and start doing that. Let's go ahead and add a row for our text and our headline. So we're going to add that row, and for a module, we want to add text for our headline. Let's go ahead and change this to your IT solution since 2010. And we want to change this to a header 2. So highlight that, come up to paragraph, and change this to heading 2. As we can see down here, this is being reflected. Now, why don't we use a header 1 here? Well, that is for SEO purposes. Google and other search engines only like to see one heading 1 per page. So we've used that up here in our headline. So any other headlines we add from here on out on this one page is going to be a heading 2, 3, 4, and so on. So let's go ahead and mess around with the design of this. Let's go to the Design tab. We'll go to our heading text. We're going to make sure this H2 is highlighted because that's what we're working on. Let's go ahead and make this a semi-bold font weight. Let's go ahead and center this. Awesome, looks good. And I'm going to make it a little bit bigger by dragging this to 36. It's looking a lot better. You can change the color if you want to, but I'm going to keep it at our regular black. Let's go ahead and save that. Now we want to add a subheader below that. So let's go ahead and click this plus button, and let's choose a new module. Let's choose some text, and let's put in a little subheader. Looks good, but let's go ahead and edit that a little bit. Go into our Design tab, click Text, because remember, this is just a piece of paragraph text. Let's go ahead and center this, and I think I might just leave it at that. Looks good. So here is what we can think of as our text row. So let's go ahead and add another row that we're going to put our icon and blurb modules in. So we're going to hover over this, we're going to get our green outline going, and we're going to click on this Add Row section. And we want to add a 3-column row. Remember, we're doing 3 modules in alignment, so let's add a 3-column row right here. As you can see, we've been given the option to add in 3 modules in the 3 different columns, so let's add a blurb module. As you can see, this gives us a placeholder image, a headline, and some body text. Let's go ahead and add in the first title for our first blurb. Let's say 24/7 uptime. Let's go ahead and change this content. I'm just going to highlight it and delete it. And let's add in a benefit for this IT company services. I also want to replace this image with an icon. So you can click on this image and icon button. And instead of using an image, we're going to scroll this to yes. And here's the option to use an icon. So I'm going to start with this one right here just for the sake of it. Now that looks good, but I want to edit it a little bit. So let's go ahead and go to Design. And let's edit the icon. So we can go into Image and Icon. And we can change it. Let's change this to one of our brand colors and make it green. Or we could do dark blue. And as you can see over here, it is changing colors. Let's go ahead and keep it green. You can also add a circle around this if you'd like to by clicking this button. And you can choose where you want the icon to be placed. So we can have it on the top, or you can select left and it'll look like that. For the sake of this, let's go ahead and put top. You can also change the font size. So we can slide this to yes, and we can make this small or as big as we want to our heart's content. But I kind of want to keep it at a regular size, so that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and save the changes. Let's go ahead and mess with our wording now. So I'm going to go back to the Design tab. I'm going to scroll down to our title text, and let's center that. And then let's also minimize this and scroll to our body text, and let's go ahead and center that. looking a lot better. I also might want to change this body text and make it just a little bit smaller to size 14. Looks good. So we've created our first blurb. Now, does that mean that we have to do just what we did here for the rest of these? Well, no. Remember, we have a duplicate button. So I'm going to hover over this blurb module, and I'm going to click this duplicate button twice. 1, 2. And now we have 2 copies of this one module that we can drag. So all we're going to do is hover over this and move this module to our second column, and move this module to the third column. And all of a sudden, in 2 minutes, we have created this new section. So let's go ahead and edit this up a little bit more. Let's go ahead and use our inline editor to highlight these words and change it to something a little bit more appropriate. All right, that looks good. Let's change this by highlighting the text in our inline editor and writing something also a little bit more relevant. Let's change this third one. And let's change the body. Awesome. Now let's go ahead and make these icons a little bit more relevant to what they're talking about. So to do that, we're going to hover over this first one. Again, select the module settings wheel. Let's go to this image icon and change it to something that might be a little bit more relevant to a 24/7 uptime. So we can scroll down here. What about this little cloud icon? All right, that looks good. Let's save that. Let's change manage services. Again, hover over it. We're going to go to our image and icon section, and let's find something that matches that. Maybe some sort of toolkit. All right, here's a toolkit. And let's change this last one right here. So it's talking about cost effective. Let's see if there's a dollar sign or some sort of money sign we can use. There's our money sign. Awesome. So that's looking a lot more customized. But I want to add a little bit of spacing between these words to make the section taller. So what can I do? Well, we're going to hover over this section, and we're going to bring our mouse out. And do you see how all of a sudden the top is highlighted blue? Well, we can actually drag this up and down to add more padding or take it away. Also, you can click this little chain icon here, and it will add padding to the top and the bottom. So now when we scroll up and down, since it's linked, it will add it to the top and the bottom. And that's what we want. So let's go ahead and add in about, let's say, 75 pixels on the top and the bottom. We'll keep dragging this to as small as we can. And if it shrinks like that, we can just hover over this section, go to design, go into spacing and click that. And we can just add the padding in right here. Let's go ahead and type 75 pixels. And since that's chained together, it's going to add it there. And that's looking like it's got a lot more space. All right, looking good. Let's go ahead and add our next section. This time, let's add a new section, a new regular section. And let's make it a 2-column row. In this first module, let's not add anything, and let's X out. And in this second column, let's add a divider. There's our dummy divider. Let's scroll over this divider right here, and let's add a headline. So scroll down to text. And let's change this to, type that out. Again, highlight it, and let's change it to another header too. Let's save it for now. And let's add a paragraph below that. So hover over that module. Let's add a text blurb. You're probably getting the hang of this now. Let's just type something in here real quick for our website. All right, looking good. Let's go ahead and save these changes. And finally, let's add a button right below this text module. So hover over it, add a new module, and let's add a button. So you can see this button already looks pretty good, but let's customize it just a little bit. Let's change this button text to learn more. And let's add a link to it. So we want to link this to the About page. Well, in WordPress, it's really cool. You don't have to type out the whole link. You can just add a / page title and be good to go. So let's go ahead and add in / about. And that tells this button to send us to this About page later on. You can change whether you want this to open in the same window or in a new tab. I like to do in a new tab a lot of times. And let's edit this button to look like the buttons we've created already. So let's click on Design. Let's keep the alignment to the left, but you can also change it to the middle or to the right. Let's change our button custom styles now. So click on button, enable custom styles. The button text size looks good, but you can add more if you want to, as big as you want, like that. Let's keep it at 20, maybe even take it down to 18. Let's change our text color to white. And let's add a background color of orange. You can also add a gradient to this if you want to, so it looks like that. And even add a background image to the button. But for this, let's remove the gradient and keep it this orange. Let's remove the border on it. You can add a border if you want to, or you can take it away. And let's change the radius to 100 to kind of match the top in that circular button. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to save these changes. Let's also edit this divider a little bit so we can hover over it. Again, as you hover over these different modules, the gray box position changes to give you a little bit better indication of where you are. So let's hover over this. We do want to show the divider. And let's go into the design and make it look a little bit different. Let's change this to our green brand color. Let's go into the sizing. So we can add a little weight to the divider and make it look taller. We can add a little height if we want and space elements out around us. We can even change the width. Let's change the width here to about, let's say 25%. And you can choose whether you want the divider, notch it down, in the middle, to the right, or to the left. Let's keep it in the left for right now. Awesome, looking good. So here's one column. Now, let's say I wanted to add a full-size background right here. So what you can do is you can actually add an image to just a single column on a single row on your page. Now, if that's confusing, just watch this. Let's hover over our row so it's highlighted green. Remember, modules are gray. Let's hover over our row and add a background image to column 1. So we're going to go into background for this row. Remember when the row settings up here. Go to column row and let's add a picture in. I'm going to click on this picture and add a background image. Now we need to upload some files. So I'm going to go ahead and upload all the pictures from my template file that I know that I'm going to be needing. So it's all these pictures in this case. You can click on this first one, hold the shift key, click on this bottom one. All the images are highlighted and now I'm going to upload them to my site. As you can see, we've got about 12 images uploading. I'm going to go ahead and pick this one to be our background. So highlight it, click upload an image, and there it is. It's looking good, but we don't have a full screen row here, so what can we do? Well, let's save the changes here and examine what's going on. If we hover over this section, we can see there's being some padding applied to this row. Let's go ahead and make that 0%. So there's 0% padding at the top. We need to scroll down here, and there's 0% padding at the bottom. Now we can also see there's probably been some padding applied to this section, and if we hover towards the top, we can see there's 54 pixels. Let's drag that down to 0, and let's drag this bottom padding down to 0 as well. All right, now we're still not full, so what do we need to do? Well, let's click into this row again. Under Design, click on Sizing, click on Make this row full width. All right, now we're still not to the borders yet, so that means our gutter width is too wide. So we want to equalize these column heights, and we want to change the custom gutter width. And we want to drag it from 3 to 0. Now, all of a sudden, this row is filling up the whole section, border to border. But it still looks a little strange because we need this column to be a little bit narrower. Now, we don't want to have to go module by module and change the spacing. That would take a long time. So what if we could change the padding for just this column? Well, let's do that. Let's go into our row section. We're going to go up to Design. We're going to go into the spacing and change the padding just for column 2. So we can add padding just there. Let's go ahead and highlight this and change it to 50 pixels. Let's link these together so they're the same top and bottom. And let's also change the left and right padding. Let's add 50 pixels. And let's make this linked. All right, that looks a lot better. but we still need to add a little bit of space between these modules. So let's hover over this top module right here, the divider, and let's edit the spacing. Let's add some margin below it. So on the bottom margin, I might type in 5%. You can also type in percent instead of pixels if you want it to scale a little bit more responsively. That looks better, but I might increment it just a few to 7%. Looking good. Let's also add a few margin points below this headline. So we're going to hover over this module settings, go into design, go into spacing, and we're going to add a custom margin here too on the bottom. Let's say 7% again. Looks good. Let's go ahead and save the changes. Finally, let's add a little bit of spacing below this paragraph. So I'm going to go into the design tab. So you get a lot faster the more you use this. And let's go ahead and increment this to 7%. Looks a lot better. Save these changes. And I think the final thing I want to do is make this column a little bit thinner. So let's go to the settings in our row. Remember, we're highlighting the green. Go into our design, go into the spacing, and instead of having 50 pixels to the left and right, let's go ahead and add 125 pixels. All right, that's a lot closer to how I want it. Finally, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, just so that it sticks out more into the heading text. So 42, and I'm going to leave it there. Awesome, so this is starting to take shape. We've also linked this button to our About page. Let's go ahead and add another section. So we're going to add a regular section, and we want to pull in another divider, another headline, and then a 2 blurb section. So think about this. We want to add a divider and a headline, which is what we just did up here. So could we shortcut this? Well, let's do it. Let's add a single column. And instead of inserting a module, I'm going to X out. I'm going to scroll to this divider and duplicate it. Then scroll to this headline, duplicate it. Now we've got 2 of the same that we can drag down to this next section. So drag this first divider down here and drag this second headline down here as well. Now you've already built your section bones very quickly. Let's drag this to the top and let's customize it from here. Let's hover over this divider. We're going to go to the design. Let's change it to the center alignment. We'll change the width to 15%, just a little bit smaller. We're going to save these changes. And let's go ahead and center this headline. We'll hover over the settings, go into design, go to heading text, and we'll center it. Make sure it's on H2. Awesome, looking good. And let's change this. Let's use our inline editor to type. So now let's go ahead and add our number blurbs. So let's go ahead and add a new row, and we want to add a 2-column row. Over in this first module, we want to add a number counter. Looks good. And just like we did the last one, let's go ahead and customize this one and then just duplicate it. So I want to change the title to Happier Customers. And then let's change this number to 100. And it counts all the way up to 100. Looks good. You can change which elements you use, so you can take off the percentage sign. You can add a link here if you want to. You can even change the background of this module if you want to, but we're not going to mess with any of that. We're just going to leave it as is. Let's go ahead and customize this a little bit too. Let's go into our number counter settings design tab, and let's click on the number text. Let's say I wanted to change this. Let's change it to our dark blue color. Let's even make it a little bit lighter blue. Okay, you can drag the number text size here. Let's set it to 70 pixels. Just like with everything else, we can change the number letter spacing or the line height or even add a little text shadow to that number, but we're going to keep it flat. We can give it a border if we want to. Here is a top border with 15 pixels on top, but let's not do any of that. You can just change all sorts of things. We can even add a box shadow to this module, but we're not going to. Let's only do one more thing, go into this number text and change this font weight from regular to semi-bold. Looks a little bit better. And let's change our title text to be a little bit smaller, and maybe make the font weight light. Looks a little bit better. Let's go ahead and make this title size taller. Awesome. So that looks great. Now instead of redoing that all over again, let's just duplicate this module. And let's drag it over. And now let's just edit this one to whatever we want to say. Let's change title to lower cost of IT and change this number to 38%. All right, that's looking good. Now these are a little bit far apart, so what can I do here? Well, you can go into this row and change the width of it. So go into your row settings, into design, click sizing, and let's use a custom width. Now we can drag this to as much as we want, or we can make it really small. You can change the unit from pixels to percentage, and then slide and drag to your heart's content all the way to 0%. Let's go ahead and make this 65. Save our changes. But you know what? I want to make it a little bit closer together, so I'm going to go into the settings again. Let's go to the design, sizing, and take that to more like 50%. There, I think that's going to look a little bit more normal. Okay, like it a lot better. Let's do what we did above and change the padding to this section. We're going to highlight over it until your mouse changes into this little padding slider. We're going to change this to 100. Now we can see this is too far apart. Well, remember, we also duplicated this headline from this headline up here, and we added margin to this bottom. So let's change the margin for this headline. Let's go into our module settings. Let's go to the design, and let's change the spacing to 0%. There, that looks a lot tighter. We've got our 100 pixel padding up here. So that section's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and add the next section. So I'm going to add a regular section. And let's go ahead and build out a 2-column layer, but let's make these columns different sizes. So let's go ahead and add the square and rectangle column. Divi automatically creates this row to reflect the 1/3 and 2/3 width column that we just picked out. And let's go ahead here and add another divider. Save those changes. Let's hover over the divider, add a headline. And let's change this to, save those changes. And let's add another text module and type in some relevant copy. Very good. Now we want to add a button below it. So let's hover over this module again, click this plus, we'll scroll to button, and then we will make this a relevant call to action. Yep. And then you can put in your YouTube link here or wherever the video is stored. So if it was a YouTube video, you'd put in youtube.com/whatever the ID is. Let's say it's video, and we're going to save the changes. Now again, we want to match this button up with the rest of the buttons on our website. So let's scroll up here. We'll right click on this button, click on copy module styles, and then we'll come back down, right click over the module, paste module styles, and there we go. So before we get to styling, let's add our video over here. Now this is a little repetitive because you've got a video watching button here and then the actual video right here, but this is just kind of our fallback. In case someone doesn't understand for some reason, you can click this module, they'll have this video here, and they'll be none the wiser. So let's go to this second column right here. We'll click the gray plus button, and then we'll insert the video module at the bottom right here. So click on that. So as you can see, this creates a little placeholder for our video. Over here is where we can choose which videos we want to insert into the page. Here we can create an overlay. You can either generate it from a video or upload one of your own. And then you can get into the design options. So let's go ahead and paste a video in. What you do is you hover over this placeholder right here. You click on this gear icon, and you can either select a file, maybe you have a file already on our server, or you can insert from a URL like YouTube or Vimeo. So let's find a video. I'm going to go to youtube.com and I'm going to type in Brandon Styles Marketing. Let's just pick this top one right here, Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs. We'll right click, copy the link address. We'll come back to our home page and we will paste it into this URL here. There's the video, it automatically propagates, and we'll insert it into the post. After a few seconds, it'll pop up here and bang, you've got a video. Now, what if I didn't want to use this particular shot right here? Maybe I wanted to add a totally different cover. Well, you can go to Overlay and either generate one from the video, which will look like the pulled thumbnail from YouTube, or we can choose our own. We can click on that and we can pick one of these videos right here. What if I picked this one? Click Upload, and Divi automatically propagates that thumbnail over here and even puts a play symbol over it, which is really cool. Let's go over to the Design tab. You can change the play icon, so you can change the color. You can click in here and even change the opacity if you wanted it to. So if I wanted to change it to kind of a see-through green, there's that. Let's keep ours white for this. The next thing I want to do is kind of add a little bit of a design flair to this. So I'm going to come down to Box Shadow, click on that. I'm going to see which ones look good. You can see all the different styles of box shadows here, and you can see all the other positioning you can do with them right below that. So I'm going to add just this one with the shadow on the bottom. Looks good. Again, you can change the horizontal positioning. Let's change the shadow color so you can really see what's going on. There's that drop shadow here. So we can change its horizontal positioning. We can change its vertical positioning, blur strength to kind of make it stick out a little bit more. Let's see what that looks like. The spread strength, which shows you how long that spreads out, all kinds of stuff. But let's set it back to its default template. To do that, you can slide over here and click on this circular back button. We'll do it up here, and now it's back to its default position. So that's also how you can undo any slider changes you make in Divi. Let's just take this shadow color a little bit more transparent so it doesn't stick out quite as much. And I want to blur it a little bit more. So let's change this blur strength to about 28 pixels. I think that'll look good. Also, I want this video to fade in a little bit. So here's something that Divi makes very easy when you're creating websites. Go down to this animation setting and we're going to click it. What you'll see here are 7 different animation styles and then a total removal. So let's see what those look like. Well, here's a bounce, and see how the video kind of bounces in here. Here's a slide. Here's a fade, zoom, a flip in, a fold in, and then a really fun roll that's a little bit distracting. You can choose how many times to animate, so you can loop it and it will just roll like that forever, which would be really aggravating. You can tell Divi which direction you want the animation to come from, so this can roll right, this can roll down. You can change the duration, the delay of the animation. If you want it to start in 3 seconds, you could. You can also change the intensity, so if we just wanted a subtle roll, we could set it to maybe 3% and it just kind of rolls in. And then you can also change the opacity of the icon when it scrolls in for even more of an exaggerated effect. Finally, you can also change the speed curve, so you can make it look kind of like Apple animations where they're easing in and out, or where they just come straight linearly. You can play around with these and see the difference. They're very subtle differences, but sometimes they can be a little bit more effective. Let's go ahead and change this to a fade, and let's change the delay to 50 milliseconds. And let's change the duration to right about 300 seconds so it's a little bit seamless. Next, let's change the opacity to 0. And we have got our slide-in video module all animated. Now let's go ahead and style this section over here and move on to our next one. Now remember, we could go through this and totally make all these custom changes if we want to, but I know that this paragraph is going to be set up just like this paragraph. So what we can do is right-click this divider module and copy the styles everywhere. So let's copy the module styles in the divider, come down here, right-click. Our paragraph copy is going to be the same, and all of a sudden we have created this video section in no time flat. So again, Command S to save, and let's go ahead and create our next section, which is going to be an opportunity to opt into our mailing list. So we're going to create our first list. So I'm going to add a new section. I'm going to add a regular section. And this time we're just going to add a single column row to this. Let's add a divider to keep with design consistency. Save those changes. Let's go ahead and add a headline. So I'm going to add a module. Now, do you see how this module is kind of giving me trouble and that green plus sign is actually covering this gray one? Well, sometimes that'll happen just because of wherever you're editing on the page. All you need to do in this case is drag over our padding for the row, move it down just a little bit, and then that plus sign should be visible. So let's go ahead and add a headline. So we're going to come down to text and we're going to enter in our headline. All right, looks good. Let's go back to the visual builder and make sure this is wrapped in a heading 2 tag. Good. Let's go ahead and add another module below this headline that will have some body copy. So let's just scroll back down to text and let's type in some relevant text. Awesome, looks good. And then below that, let's add a contact form. So since this is kind of a way new module, I'm going to insert this into a new row. So let's click on this green plus button to add a new row. Just make it a 1-column row for now. And we're going to add our first contact form right here. So as you can see, this already fills out a template one for you to give you an idea of what it's going to look like. But let's go ahead and see what we can do with this. So it pre-populates it with a name field, an email field, and a message field. Now let's say we wanted to collect a phone number. All we need to do to add a field is to click Add New Field. We can give this an ID. Now the ID here is for sending the email to ourselves once our customer or client inputs their information. So I'll show you how that works in a second. Since this is going to be a phone number, let's just type in phone. And we give the new field a title, phone number. Now we can choose from a few field options here. We can choose whether it's an input field, an email field, text area, checkboxes, radio buttons, which looks like this when you put them together. It's that little clickable button where you can fill in some options. So here is option 1. Let's add option 2, option 3, so on and so forth. And you can even choose whether you want to make it a required field or not. Now let's go ahead and move this back to an input field where users can put in whatever information we need. You can also add conditional logic. So by doing this, you can give your contact field rules. Again, just a friendly reminder, if you forget what any of these fields are, you can also hover your cursor over this question mark and click on it and it will tell you what's going on. So this relation means choose whether any or all the rules should be fulfilled. This enable button, if you click on the question mark, tells you that enabling conditional logic makes this field visible when any or all of the rules are fulfilled. So when might you use this? This might be good for pre-qualifying a client. So if you were a blue car cleaning business and you only clean cars that are blue, then you could ask what color is your car? And if they click blue, then some more information might show up. Or if they click red, then you could show them a sorry, you're not welcome here sign, something like that. That's what conditional logic does. You can also do the normal things like change the link to this module in a form if you wanted to do a pop-up later, change the background, things of that nature. But for now, we're going to leave this field. Again, this is just the phone number field as it is. And we're going to go back, leaving our field settings and going to our contact form settings. So we're going to style this whole form now. You can give your contact form a name if you want, and it will show up above it. We're not going to do that for this. You can also write a success message. So when the client submits this contact form, you can choose to show them a message here. Now, as soon as someone submits this contact form, they're going to see that message. We can also change the submit button text, so we could change it to subscribe. As you can see, it is changed over there. Below here is where we choose what email we want this contact form to go to. So if I wanted it to go to me, I could type in brandon@brandonstyles.com. And here is where I would type what the email that I receive looks like from my website. So I might write something like, you just got an email from a potential client. Below is some information. And then we know that we're going to be collecting their name, their email, a message, and their phone number. Now let's say we wanted the phone number to be on top of the message. Well, we would just scroll back up here to our fields and just drag phone to over message. It makes the change over here and we're good to go. Now, how do I actually get the information that a client would enter to get sent to me? Well, here's where our field IDs, remember we talked about that when we were creating this phone message? Here's where our field IDs come in handy. These are the names of the IDs we're going to put as placeholders in our email message. So we've got name with a capital N, email with a capital E, a lowercase phone, and message. So we're going to come down here and we're going to place them between two percent marks. So it works like this. Here in the name field, we're going to type %% name, %%. And essentially what we're doing here is we're inserting this placeholder, name with a capital N, all right? This one's email, this one's phone _ number, and this one's message. So under email, we would type the title field. Here, for message, we would type message. And then finally, remember, phone number had an underscore, so we'll type phone _ number. And what this is essentially doing is telling Divi whatever variables or text or letters or numbers that our client puts in this name box, add that to this right here. And then when we get the email, it will actually have the person's name there. So if someone came and wrote John, this would say John. If they wrote, hi, how are you? It would show, hi, how are you right here. Now you can also add a crazy one. So we could come up to add new field. We could add it. We would give it the field ID of SSN. And then the title, we would type your social security number. We'll go back to our main contact form settings. There's SSN, all capitalized. So we'll go back to email and we'll add it right below here. Client social security number. And then we just need to put that SSN between percent marks. So let's go ahead and delete that. We don't need it. Let's go ahead and delete that field up here. And that is that. You can also choose which elements you want in your contact form. You can either display the CAPTCHA, which is this math problem here, or take it away. I usually like to display them because it cuts down on spam bots, but for this purpose, I'm not going to. You can also opt to redirect your contact form. So if you want to redirect people who submit the form to a thank you page, you can enable this and you can redirect them somewhere else. Example.com/thanks. Let's disable that for this. Now let's design this up a little bit and make it look a little bit better. I'm going to come to the Design tab. So let's change how these form fields look right here. I'm going to click Form Field Text. And let's go ahead and change this background to this white right here. Looking good. Let's also change the form field font weight to light. See how it looks a little bit cleaner right here. You can do all the normal kind of stylings here. You can change the alignment to center if you want to, or you can change the text size, letter spacing, so on and so forth. But that's looking pretty good right now. Let's go ahead and style this button, the subscribe button, to look like our normal buttons. So we'll click that. We will use custom styles. Let's go ahead and give it our normal button text color, which is white. Let's go ahead and give it our normal background color of this orange. Let's take off the border by sliding it down, and let's change the border radius to 100. So this is looking pretty good. But what if I want to stack these form fields right here? Well, we need to customize the individual form fields, and we can do that by going back to this Content tab and clicking on whichever form field we want to edit. So let's say we want to edit this name field. Let's go to Design. Let's select Layout, and we can opt to make this full width. That looks really good. Now let's say I wanted to make email address full width as well. Well, to do that, you can just right click on Layout, copy the layout styles. Let's go back to our main contact form settings. Let's right click on email and let's click paste item styles, and boom, we are way quicker, lengthened here, so to speak. Now let's edit this button a little bit to kind of reflect that style as well. So let's go back to the Design tab. Let's go to our button. Oh wait, there's no alignment option for this button. So what are we supposed to do? Do we just leave it? Let's say we want to center this button. Do we just leave it as is? Well, no, we now need to enter some custom CSS. And here's how custom CSS works in Divi. It might sound scary to some beginners, but it's really not at all. It's actually a very easy, super easy language to learn. Let's go to this Advanced tab. And here we see a few different options. Again, we can add IDs or classes from CSS to this particular contact form, or we can choose to edit the custom CSS of this module. So if we click that, we can use a before pseudo element, we can edit the main element, and we can even edit individual sections of this module, like the title, or the contact button, or the form fields. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's edit this contact button. Now let's type in a custom CSS rule. Maybe I wanted to change the font size of this button to 24 pixels. Now as you can see, let's make that a little more exaggerated and change it to 4. As you can see, this is changing the button over there too, but we're using custom CSS instead of the sliders. Now, I try and use the sliders all the time, unless for some reason, like this case we've encountered, where we want to center align this button. Let's go ahead and remove this rule. You might have to write a little custom CSS, and here's where you would do it. So if we want to center this, let's type in the CSS to do it. I'm going to type position absolute, left 0, width of 100%, and now we just need to center it. Looks good. And this is a little bit too close for comfort for my liking, so I'm also going to add a little bit of margin to the top of this button so that it can have some breathing room below that contact form. So let's add in a margin top of 5, and now we're looking pretty good. So let's go ahead and save these changes. All right, we've got what we're looking for. Now let's do one more little change, and let's change the width of this whole contact form just so it's not so overwhelming. So I'm going to go into the Design tab. We're going to go down to Sizing and resize this module. Let's give it a width of 50%. And let's go ahead and center it. All right, that's looking really good. I also want to change the spacing between this row and this row. See how we have 85 pixels of padding right here? Let's go ahead and make that just about 65. Looks a little bit more pulled in. Very good. Now we've got this whole contact form section set up, so let's go ahead and do a little customization work. So again, we're just going to come and grab our styles from this module section right here and paste them down to the bottom. So let's go ahead and right click on this module, copy the styles, bring them down, and then paste them over the module like that. Now again, learning Divi shortcuts is going to save you a lot of time. And an example is this. Instead of having to right click and then scroll and then drag and then paste on each one of these, there is an actual shortcut that we can use to copy the styles. So we're going to hit Option Command C on a Mac or Option Control C on a PC, and this will copy. And then down here we're going to hover over the module settings, and we're going to hit Command Option V or Option Control V on a PC. So essentially we're doing copy and pasting with the Option key thrown in front, and that's looking good. So now let's go ahead and add a little background to our section. So I'm going to click on the section settings. I'm going to click on the background tab. Let's add a gradient. Let's go ahead and make this first color this blue. And let's make the second color the same brand color blue, but let's give it a little bit of a transparent overlay here. This is looking good. But now, these colors aren't. So we need to change these to white. I'm going to click on this setting, and you'll see this blue paintbrush shortcut pop up. This is a quick way to get to some quick, commonly used settings. See, now we don't even have to scroll to heading 2 and all that. The common stylings are right here. So we can go ahead and make the text color white, and we can center align this, save it. We can also center our divider, and let's go ahead and change its color to white. Looks good. And finally, let's go ahead and change our body copy color to white. So go to the design, we're going to go to the regular text, change it to white. Awesome, and let's go ahead and center that too, just like its other texts. All right, this is looking pretty good, but this looks a little far apart still. So what I'm going to do is tighten this up by taking away some of the margin and spacing in each of these items. So to do that, let's see what kind of spacing we've got on our divider. Module settings, design, spacing. Looks like we have a custom margin bottom of 7%. Let's go ahead and take that just down to 2%. Already looks a lot tighter. Let's see if we have a bottom margin on this headline. Hover over the headline, go to design, spacing. We've got another custom margin of 7%. Remember, because we copied it and pasted it from above. Let's just move that right now to 2 again. And that looks a lot tighter. But I still want to make it a little bit better. So what I want to do is narrow this section right here. Now, let's think about this. This is one of those thought processes that will get a lot more natural the more you use Divi. We want to make this skinnier like we did down here, but instead of using just this one module, here we're using 3 in this column, right? Some text, a headline, and a divider. So instead of going one by one and adjusting the widths for these 3 individually, let's go ahead and adjust the settings on the row and make the row 50% width, and then we can center it if we need to. So let's go into sizing. Let's choose a custom width for this row. Let's choose a percent. Let's make the row 50%. Nice. And we don't have to center it. It actually self-centers, so that's looking good. Now, one more thing I might want to do here is give a little bit more spacing below this divider. So I'm going to hover over it, go to design, spacing, and I'm going to add 5%. Awesome, everything looks really nicely spaced. So the only thing I might want to do here is add a little bit of padding to this row to get that section a little taller, and that's looking really good right there. So let's use our inline text editor to make that capital G, and let's save the page and move on to our next section. So let's add a new section, a regular section. So let's go ahead and create the row for our typical header. And instead of adding modules, we're going to leave that for now. And then let's add another row for our blog section. And then we're going to select the blog module. And it's going to go ahead and pre-populate all our blogs. So right now, we just have the 3 dummy posts we created. But you can go in here and make a lot of changes. So before we make any changes to that row, let's save and let's add our headline up here. So to speed up our workflow, all we're going to do is duplicate this row right here. See, there's the copy. We're going to hover over the row and drag it down and place it here. And we can go ahead and delete this first row we created. And all of a sudden, super quick, we have a header. Now all we need to do is customize the colors and we'll be in business. Let's change this divider color to green. Let's go to the divider design, change the color to our brand green. And let's change these words to black. So I'm going to click the module settings, look for the paintbrush, and then click black. I'm going to do the same for this section. Look for the paintbrush, click on the module settings, and change it to black. Now all we need to do is change this to some relevant copy. So I'm going to use the inline editor to highlight all this and just type out resources. And then again, use the inline editor to highlight this text and type. It's looking good. Now let's style this blog module up a little bit. Go ahead and click on the module settings for the blog. Now here you can choose how many posts you want to show. So if you had 50 posts, you could type 50, or you could have 50 posts and only want to show 12. So you would just type in 12 right there. But we're going to leave this blank or just at its default 10 since we only have 3. You can also choose which blog categories you want to include. You can choose how you want the date to display. You can choose whether you want to show excerpts or content, so on and so forth. And you can also change the metadata. So see how this has my name, the date, and categories. Well, you can go under elements and you can opt to not show an image. So it would update to look like this with no images shown, but we want to keep that. You can add a read more button if you want to. You can choose to show the author. I'm not going to here. I'm not going to show the date either. I'm not going to show the categories. So this is looking a lot better. Let's make this, instead of a full width single blog, let's make this more of a grid. Let's go to the design settings for the blog. Let's go to layout and let's change full width to grid. Great, that's looking a lot better. So let's go ahead and center the titles on these blogs. So we'll go to title text and text align to the center. You know what? I actually like the left align here better. And let's go ahead and make these individual blog modules stand out a little bit more. Let's add a box shadow to them. See how this one looks. Looks pretty good. Let's make it a little less noticeable by decreasing the opacity of the shadow color. There, that's a lot more subtle. That's looking pretty good. So now readers can click into our blog if they want to. Now let's add our next section, which is Meet Our Team. Now Meet Our Team looks a lot like this section, right? So instead of starting from scratch, let's just duplicate this section, scroll down, and we can already start to immediately make edits. So let's change the background of this section to this gray color. See how it's a little bit off-white? So there's a separation of these two sections. Let's go ahead and change resources to Meet Our Team. And let's type in a little relevant copy down here too. It's always great to know there's an actual human supporting your business. Meet our team below. So good client-focused copy. Now we don't want this blog module section. Instead, let's delete this row altogether, add a new row, and make it 3 columns. So you're going to add your first module right here, and you're going to scroll down to person. And this creates a person that you can put right here, obviously. So let's change this to brand styles. Let's give the position of CEO. And here's where you can fill out Facebook profiles, Twitter, things like that. Let's go ahead and put some fake ones in here. Let's say facebook.com/123. Let's just copy and paste this all the way down. Here you would normally put in your regular social media links. But over here you can see it has added these steps in for you one by one, and that's really, really cool. Let's go ahead and take out this biography right here, and let's change the image of the person. Awesome, that's looking really good. Now all I want to do is center the language below the picture, so let's go to the person settings design section. Let's scroll down to the title text and let's center it. Minimize it. Let's just take all the text, in fact, and center it. Now let's see if we can make this stick out a little bit more and add a box shadow to our picture. Now notice that this is a problem. This added a box shadow to this whole module, but we only want to add it to the picture. So that means we're going to have to again modify our custom CSS. So let's remove this box shadow. Let's go to the advanced section. Let's go to custom CSS. And let's scroll down to this, the member image. There it is. And let's add a box shadow of our own. Awesome, there we go. So you're just gonna type box shadow 0 pixels, 0 pixels, 50 pixels, and then RGBA 111.4. So that looks great. There is our one person section. Now remember, we don't have to do this by hand each time. That's the brilliance of Divi. We can just duplicate this section twice. Let's drag it over to our second column and then drag this guy over to our third column. And then we just need to click and make the changes. So let's change this picture by clicking this module settings. Let's keep Brandon Styles and then make it a junior. Let's call him the CMO. Again, you would copy and paste whatever this person's individual social media descriptors were. Let's change the image so people aren't confused. And there's that new person created. Now let's change the details on this third person, and we're in business. So let's do Brandon Styles III. It's a family business. Let's change him to the CFO, and let's go down and change the image here too to this smiling young sprite guy. Awesome, and in about 2 minutes we have created our team section. This is flowing super fast. we're down to our last few sections. So let's go ahead and add a testimonial section. So I'm going to add a new section here, make it a regular section. We're going to add a 1-column row for our text, which we can drag down in a second. Then we're going to add another row below this one, and we're going to give it a 2-column width there. And under this first module, we want to add a testimonial. And then we just want to style it from here. So the author's name of the testimonial, let's type one up real quick. Jane Smith, and you can see it changing over here as well. You can add in a job title if you want to below that, or a company name. Maybe they worked at Pizza Hut. But for now, we're not going to do that. We're going to add a quote right here. Very good. We want to add an image to our testimonial because people are respondent to faces. So let's upload some images here. Again, we're going to go to Upload Files. We'll select the files. I've got 2 on my desktop of old testimonials. Let's go ahead and add them in. There we go. Now let's upload this first image. There she is, looking good. Let's go ahead and remove this background right here. Instead of using a background color, I'm going to choose no. So now it's just no background at all. And you know what? Let's go back to the module settings and let's remove this quotation mark. So we're going to go into Design. We're going to go to Quote Icon. And here you can change the color, of course, but you can also take it to an opacity of 0, and we don't have it at all. I'm going to save that. So we've got our one testimonial. Let's go ahead and duplicate this. So again, I'm going to duplicate the module, slide it over, and just edit from here. Let's go to the module settings. Let's change the author name. Copy and paste in a quote. Awesome. Let's go ahead and change the image to John Smith's image. And there it is. Now this image came up in a circle. What if I wanted to change that? Well, you can. We can actually go to the design of the testimonial. We can come to the image and we can change the width. We can also change the height if we wanted to and make it smaller. We can make it rounder, or we can do whatever we want here. We can also choose how round we want the corners. So we can make them 0 pixels and make this a totally square image all the way around. Or we could even make it different. We could leave this at 0 pixels, change this to 100 pixels, and we've kind of got a cool little half squaresy blog thing going on here. But for this case, I'm just going to leave it at 90 pixels all the way around. So let's go ahead and finish building out and changing the styles on this section. So we know we need to add a headline row. So I'm going to come to this headline row, duplicate it, select it, drag it down by holding, and dropping that row here. Now since we just created it, we can delete this one. And let's go ahead and make this more relevant. Let's go ahead and delete this module. We don't really need it. And this actually might look a little bit better if we have the divider underneath the headline. So let's move the headline above the divider. Now that's not working for some reason, and sometimes you run into that. So instead, let's try and drag the divider below the headline. There we go. Now sometimes the spacing and the margin on the builder will prevent you from doing certain things like that. Just play around with it and you'll figure out a way to either move a second module up or a first module down. One of those will get you the desired result. Let's continue styling this out. So let's go ahead and change this background image on this section. Let's do that gradient we've been using. That looks really nice. Let's change the first color to the dark blue, the second color to the dark blue. Change the opacity a little bit. Looking good. Now we just need to change the color of the text, right? So let's hover over the headline. Look for the paintbrush. Let's change it to white. Let's also change this divider color. Let's hover over it. Go to the design settings and change it to white as well. Nice. Now the only thing we need to change here is the font color, and we're going to change it to white. So again, look for the paintbrush in this module, and we'll choose white. And then let's just copy these styles. Remember, Option Command C or Option Control C, and then Option Control V. And perfect, we have matched the styles, and those are looking great. What I'm going to do is I'm going to now highlight this paragraph. I'm going to change these to italics, and then I'm going to highlight this and also change it to italics. And that's looking pretty good. The only thing I might want to do is add a little bit of bottom margin here. Let's say 80 pixels. All right, the testimonial section is looking great. You know what? Let's actually remove that padding. Let's make this section a little bit thinner. That looks good. Now let's add in our pricing table section. So we're going to add a section, a regular one, and we need to add our headline row. So there's our one row, which we'll drag down in a second. And we need to add a pricing table row. So let's add another row, one column, and we're going to scroll down and click pricing tables. I really encourage you, by the way, to look through all of these modules and just kind of test them out and see what they do. You might find some really awesome looking pre-created stuff like this pricing table. Check it out. Already looks super pro. So right now we've got a 2-table pricing table, right? 1, 2. Let's go ahead and add a third one in there, and let's customize that third one. So add new pricing table. Let's change the title here. As you can see, we now have 3. Let's change it to Tier 3. Let's change the subtitle to per year. Let's change our currency to percentage signs. Just kidding, let's change it back to the US dollar. Let's change the price here. You can add in anything you want, obviously. You can even add in decimals, but for now I'm just going to keep it $7.99. And let's add a button below it. Maybe someone wants to choose this Tier 3, so they can click a button. Let's type, I want this. And we can see it makes a really cool button. So that looks pretty good for a pricing table. And here we can add in our features. Now notice this plus and minus here. Well, if we change this plus to a minus, you'll notice that it grays it out over here on the table. So Divi makes it really easy to control what's grayed out and what's not. If you want to make this grayed out feature right here not grayed out, you just add a plus sign. Really, really cool feature. So we'll go ahead and copy and paste in some relevant material here. All right, looks good. And let's change this up really quick. I want to go into the design settings. Let's go to the body text. Let's center align it. Awesome, that looks great. And let's go ahead and change the stylings on the button too. So let's scroll down to where it says button. We want to use custom styles. Let's change the text size. Let's take it to 17 pixels, looks good. I also want to change the text color this time. Let's take it to a green, that brand color green. Let's change the button border radius to keep with our consistent circles there. And let's add a little bit of spacing between the letters. Watch, I want this. See, you'll see it start to spread out. Let's do 2 pixels. I think that looks all right. And let's say I want to change, I want this to all capital letters, but I don't want to go back and change it on my own. Well, you can actually go to the font style here and click this double T, and that is now capitalized. That's looking pretty good. So let's go ahead and change our pricing text. So there's a option for pricing text. We're going to change the price font weight to bold. And let's change the price text color to black. There, that's looking pretty good. Now, instead of recreating all these styles here and here, we can just duplicate this one twice. 1, 2. And then we just need to delete these 2 that we don't want. And that saved us a lot of time. So let's go ahead and change these real quick to match. Let's change this to Tier 1 per year. Looks good. Let's make it $5.99. And let's take out our first 2 options. Remember, we're going to hit minus and we're going to hit minus. Looking good. Let's go and switch up this other one. You can even use the inline editor here to save some time. So you can type $6.99 there. You can type Tier 2. And we can put a minus in front of just unlimited users. And we're good to go. All right, let's make a few more edits. I'm going to go back to my whole pricing table right here, And I want to change the background here on these pricing tables to just be transparent. So I'm going to click on Design. We're going to go to Title Text. And right here, the table header background color, we're just going to click this clear. There, that's looking a lot better, but we have to make these darker, otherwise I won't be able to see it. So let's scroll down here to our heading 2s, which is what those are. And we're going to change the color to black. We also need to change per year. So instead of going all down here and looking for it, we can just highlight this paintbrush. It will take us right to it. And then we can change it to black right there. And in fact, let's make it a little bit more transparent so it doesn't compete with that tier 1 above us. There, that looks good. Now the pricing table looks really nice, but what are a few things we can do to make it stick out a little bit more? Well, I think the first thing I want to do from a design standpoint is remove these bullets right here. So what we can do is make sure we're in the pricing table settings design. We're going to scroll up, click on bullet, and then we're going to hide the bullet color. Now they're gone. Looks a lot cleaner, right? Now let's say we wanted to make this stand out a little bit more. Well, Divi gives you a really cool way to do that. If you pick one of the tiers, let's say this middle tier, tier 2, you click into its individual settings, and then you go to the design tab and the layout, you can actually click make this table featured, and it will do this really cool pop out and push those other tables down a little bit. So it highlights this, adds a little bit of a drop shadow, which is really cool. Let's make it stand out a little bit more even. For example, let's change this title text color to this green here. Then it sticks out a little bit more. And let's change the button so that it sticks out. We'll scroll down to our button. We'll make the text color white. We'll make the text size just 2 pixels bigger. Not too much of a change, but just enough. And let's change the background color. Let's add a color and we'll select green. And let's go ahead and remove this little button border color. Let's go ahead and just click delete there. Awesome. Now see, that sticks out a little bit more. That's the one that people most often choose. So we want it to be highlighted. Let's go ahead and save that. Again, we will duplicate our row up here and drag it down. So let's duplicate this row. Hold over this to drag down. Let it go. Let's delete this row again. And all we need to do is change these colors. So let's hover over this module, look for our paintbrush, and let's choose black. Then let's change this to something relevant like pricing. And now let's change the color on the divider. Hover over it, choose the settings. Let's go to design, color, make it green. Looks good, and we'll save that. All right, now we just have one more section left on this home page, and we have almost completed a full home page very quickly. And this process gets even faster as we continue to go. So what we want to do now is add a last contact form at the bottom of this page. So we're going to add a new section. We're going to make it a regular section. We're going to do this column right here, which is kind of a smaller left column and a wider right column. We're going to add it here. After that, let's go ahead and add in some text. We'll do a headline and we'll type, have a question? Let's highlight this and change it to a heading 3. And let's add a little bit more below this. Looking good. Let's save. And below this module, we want to add our contact information. So let's go ahead and add a new module. And let's choose this blurb. Looks good. Let's take away the title here. And in this blurb, let's have this be our address. So we'll type 123 Main Street, Atlanta, Georgia. Now that's a little far apart for my liking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the text editor. I'm going to backspace Atlanta, Georgia to the same line. And then you're going to use this HTML text editor to type a left bracket, BR, and then a right pointing bracket. And all of a sudden, we have used a small break so that this is a lot closer together and it looks good. Finally, let's add an icon. So we'll click image and icon. We'll opt to use our icon. And let's pick something related to an address. This looks good. Now that's fine, but it's way too big. Let's make that icon smaller. Let's go to the design section, click on image and icon. Let's change it to the brand green. And let's also change the placement of it and make it left. That looks a lot better. You can play with the font size if you want to. Let's make it 45 right there. That looks pretty nice. And we're going to save that. So that looks good. Now we want to add a cell phone number and an email address. So I'm just going to duplicate and duplicate again. I'm going to change this with our inline editor to a phone number. Delete the rest of this. Then I'm going to change this to an email address. And now all I need to do is change these icons. So we'll hover over this module, click the settings, scroll down to images and icon, and let's change it to something like a telephone. Alright, here's the telephone. And let's change this email address to something email-y. So we'll hover over this module, scroll down to image and icon, and see if there's some sort of email icon. There's one right there. Very cool. Over here in this column, we want to add a contact form. Now we don't want it to be the same one that we created above, right here. We want this to be a separate one that actually lives on every single page of our website. I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. Let's add a new module to this column, and let's add a contact form. There it is. Let's go ahead and style it a little bit. So let's just leave their name, email, and a message, but let's make those full width. So I'm going to click on that particular field, go to the design, the layout, and make it full width. Then let's go back using this backwards arrow, and we're going to hit Option Command C. And then we're going to paste that, Option Command Paste, onto the name field, and it will take that full width. Now all we need to do is change the name to what we want, which is email, and then email, and then that's looking pretty good. Let's go back to the contact form as a whole. Now let's change some of the designs on this. I think I want to add a title. Let's add a success message. Let's change the button text to reach out, change over here. Then let's compose the email we want this to go to. So we want this to go to Brandon@brandonstyles.com. And then you can say anything here. All right, their name is, their email is, what they want to say. And let's add in our variables, remember, which are just right there. Whatever it says right there, you add down here. So we'll type in percentage name, close. Percent email, close. Percent message, close. Now looks good. Let's also take away this reCAPTCHA. So we'll display CAPTCHA, no. And then finally, let's edit this button. Let's go into the design section. We're going to scroll down to the button. We're going to choose use custom styles for the button. Let's change the text size to 16. Let's make the text color white. Let's give it a background color of green. Let's change the border width to 0. And let's change the border radius to 100%. Awesome, this is really starting to take shape. The next thing I want to do is add a background image to this section. So let's click on the section settings. Let's click on background. Let's choose a picture. I'm going to add a background image. And let's just pick one of these right here. This one looks good. Alright, so there's a background image, but it's gotten hard to read these. So what if we added a background layer to each column that we've just created? Well, let's see if we can do that. Let's go to this row. Let's go to the settings. Let's go to background. And look, we can actually set a background color for column 1. Let's add it, and let's choose white. There, you can read that a lot better. Let's do the same thing for column 2. Let's add a background color and let's do white. Alright, that looks better. Except now we can't see the borders of our contact field, so we need to change those. Let's go into the module settings for our contact form. Let's go to the design. Let's go to the form field text. We'll change the background color to black, and then we'll click the dabber here and change the opacity to make it blend in a little bit more. Alright, it's looking a lot better, but look how this is overrunning and all the words are right up against the row. So that means we need to add some padding inside each column, 1 and 2. So let's do that. Let's go into our row settings. Let's go to the design. Let's go to the spacing section. And here's the padding for column 1. So let's add a top padding of 3%. Let's link these. And then let's add a left and right padding of 5%. Perfect. Looking good. Let's do the same thing for column 2. So I'm going to right click this, copy column padding, right click here, paste the padding. Awesome. I might take that down just a little bit on the left and right. And there, that's looking a lot better. So let's save these. This is getting a lot closer, but we've still got some formatting problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make these words smaller. Let's go into the module settings for the text. Let's go to the design. Let's go to body text. And let's make it a size 10. Then all we have to do is right click, copy the body text size, and then right click these modules and paste body text size. Do the same here. Then we've got it fixed. Now I'm thinking that I don't like the background to these. So let's hover over the contact form module. Let's go into the design. Let's change the form field text background color back to white. And let's add a border around each one of these text fields. So we can go down, add a border. Let's add a 1 pixel border. That looks a lot better. Let's make that border a little bit lighter. Let's click on this black dabber. Change the opacity, take it down. Way more subtle right there. And let's even round these corners off a little bit. See how they're total 90 degrees? Let's make them a little rounded. You can do that by coming to your inputs, rounded corners, changing that 0 pixel to, let's call it 5. And see, look, it's shaped up our borders and it smoothed them off. Now this looks really, really nice. And I think to make them stand out a little more, let's darken our background. We'll do that by going into the settings, clicking on background. So in this case, let's go to the gradient. Let's add a background gradient and let's make it black and black with a little opacity here, maybe 50%. Let's scroll down and then place the gradient above the background image. That looks a lot better. I think the last thing I'm going to do, which is just a design choice, is smooth off the borders on each of these paddings. So let's go into our row sections. Let's go to the advanced section. Let's add some custom CSS. So let's scroll down into column 1 main element. We're going to write border radius 5 pixels with a semicolon. We're just going to copy that. Come down to column 2, main element, paste that, and then it rounded off those corners too. This is looking really, really good. The last thing I want to do, just as a design choice, is add a box shadow to the back of each column. So let's go back to the row settings. Let's go into design. Let's go to box shadow and see if this works. Well, it added it to the whole row. We just want to do it to one column. So that means it's up to CSS again. So we'll go to the advanced, custom CSS, column 1 main element, and we will paste in our box shadow code from before. Awesome, and see it added a little bit of a box shadow here to blend in. Let's just copy that code and drop it in right here. And now it's over there. Awesome, looks great. Now remember, we want to use this section on every single page, but it would still take time to recreate on every page. We don't want to do that. So what we want to do is save this section. So we're going to come up to the section, we're going to save it to the library, and we're going to call it the page contact footer. Now because I know this is going to be on every page and I'm going to want the information to remain consistent, especially if I ever make a change, I want to make this a global item. And remember, what that does is if you make a change on your home page, it will change the page contact footer information on every single page, so you don't have to go one by one making individual changes. So if you make a change to this section on one page, because it's global, it will make that change on every page, which is really handy and really well thought out. So we're going to click Save to Library. It's going to show us that loader, and then it's now turned green. So that's how we know it's global, because it's green. And guys, just like that, we have created our home page, and it's looking really good. Now come down here, and we can click this little magnifying glass, and it actually zooms out so we can see our whole page. Whole page looks pretty nice. I like to use this magnifying glass to check spacing, so I might want a little bit more spacing there. You can inch it out. Might want a little less spacing here, so I'll hover over the margin here and drag it up. And then I might do the same here too. Looks good. I might want to add a little bit more spacing down here. Looks good. And then the rest of it looks pretty all right to me. So we've now built it on a desktop, but let's see what it looks like on our phones. Let's click this phone button and let's check it out. Well, as we can see, we've got some formatting problems right here, okay? But remember, any changes we make while we're in mobile mode will only stay while we're in mobile mode. So for example, if I clicked on the module settings of the text, went to the design, and went to the text sizing, I can change the text size here to 41. See how that's so big? Well, you can actually come back to the text size, and you can click on this icon, and then you can choose how big you want it to be for a tablet. So if we wanted it to be 8 pixels for a tablet and then 41 for our phone, we can do that, and they'll keep their responsiveness as they grow. See, that shrinks back to 8. So whatever changes you make in the individual viewports will reflect only on that viewport, all right? Let's go ahead and change these back to where they were by resetting them. And let's reset this phone one. Awesome. Now pat yourself on the back, seriously, because the hard part is done. The home page is always the longest, hardest one. From now on, because we've built these assets, we can copy and paste them over and over and over again and really speed up our workflow for this easy site. So let's go ahead and make these changes. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller in the mobile view. So again, click on the module settings. We'll go to design. We want to look for the title text size. Remember, we want to hover over the icon, and under our tablet section, that looks good. Under our phone section, we want to make it a little bit smaller. See, that looks a lot more readable. If we go to desktop, it's still nice and big how we had it at 69 pixels, but at the phone, it's still 38. And that's looking pretty good. Let's scroll down and see what else we need to fix. So that looks all right. See, everything's nice and in one column. All right, now here's a problem. Because of how we set this row up, see this row outline right here? We've actually got this weird title picture break right here. So what I want to do is this. I want to duplicate this row, hide this particular one when we're in the mobile view, and then the one that I duplicate, show it only when it's in the mobile view. And we're going to format it a little bit differently. So here's how we would do that. First, we're going to duplicate this row, and there it is on the bottom. This bottom one is going to be our mobile row, okay? And this is going to be our desktop row, all right? So our desktop row is going to stay the same, right? Remember, we liked it in this desktop view. Let's go back down to mobile view. So we're going to come up to this first section. We're going to click that gear icon. We're going to go to advanced, and then we want to mess with the visibility. So we want to actually disable this row on only the desktop. So disable this row on a phone, and you'll see it gray out there, and a tablet. And if we were in tablet view, it would have this grayed out as well. So this row is only going to show on desktop computers. So we don't have to even worry about reformatting and rebuilding this. What we want to do to this new row that we added is change it so that it's only visible on tablets and phones. So let's go into the row settings. We go to advanced, click on visibility, and we want to disable it on the desktop only, because remember, we want to show it on the phone and the tablet. So now all we need to do is restructure this. So I remember that this is a 2-column row, and I want to change it to a 1-column row. So to do that, I'm going to click on this little 3-section folding paper. I'm going to change the column structure layout. So we've got 2 now. Let's just make it 1. Awesome, that looks a lot better already. So all we need to do is maybe darken this background image to read these words, maybe change the words to the white font, and maybe add a little padding inside so these words aren't pressed up against the edge of the phone. So let's do that. Let's add an overlay over our background. So we'll go to the row background. Under column 1, we're going to add a background gradient. Let's make him black and a little bit less black, a little bit more opacity. And let's choose to place it over the background image. Looks good. Now remember, we wanted to change the color of the words too. So let's hover over our title, look for the paintbrush, let's make it white, and then let's do the same for the paragraph body. We'll make it white. Nice. So now inside this row, we just need to add a little bit of padding to these modules right here to get everything to line up and look padded in. So let's go to these module settings. Let's go to design. You'll go to spacing. And in the top padding, let's give it 1%, and then let's link those. And then left and right, let's give 3% padding and link those. Now all we need to do is right click over this spacing word. We'll copy these spacing styles, save, and now we just need to right click over this module and click paste spacing styles. Finally, let's make this button line up in the center. So we'll hover over the button module settings, go to the design, we'll go to the alignment and click center. Now that section's looking really, really good. All right, so now that we fixed that, let's keep scrolling down and see if there's anything else that's kind of weird. I might make these words a little bit smaller on mobile. See how it's kind of a skinny paragraph? Let's click on the module settings for this headline. We'll go to design. You'll go to heading text. Remember, this is an H2. We're going to scroll down to the heading 2 text size. Click on the responsive icon. And on our phone, we want to make it about like that. That looks a lot better. Also, look how skinny this contact form is. Remember, we made it only 50% width, but that means it's now 50% width on the phone. So what we need to do, save this, is we need to make this module 100% width on phones. So we're going to click on module settings. We're going to click on the design of the contact form. Under sizing, we're going to change the responsive width. So again, hover over width, there's your responsive icon, and on our phone, we want it to be 100%. Or you could make it 0%, but we're going to do 100%. You can left align it, right align it, or center align it, and we're going to keep it at that. Let's check our resources. Resources look really good. Meet our team looks good. Now these letters are big too, so let's make the change. Let's click on module settings. We're going to go to design, heading text, H2. See, we're getting faster. We're going to go to text size, hover over the icon, and on the phone, we're going to take it down to about right there. Looks a lot better. Client section looks good. Our pricing section looks good. And then there's our universal footer. So guys, we have finished our home page. Awesome job. Now let's build out these last 3 pages and get this thing live. So we have now finished our home page. Let's zoom back out to the desktop view. And everything's looking really, really nice right now. And let's just move on through the rest of the pages in this website, okay? But before we do, I want to do a few things. First, let's check up the mockup for our About page. So as we can see in this mockup, we've got a few of the same looking rows that we had on our home page, right? We had this kind of blurb section right here. We had this same kind of meet our team section right here. And we also had this same kind of subscribe by the newsletter section right here. To save some time with our website build, I'm going to go to the home page and I'm going to save these sections as templates and then import them into our new About page, and we'll see how quickly we can get this built. Let's go back over to the real website. So here we are on our home page, and all I'm going to do is go to our About page, which as we can see is blank, and we're just going to enable that visual builder. All right, so what I'm going to do now is save those sections we talked about as templates. So one of them was this kind of blurb template right here. So I'm going to select this row. I'm going to click this downward arrow. I'm going to save the layout. Let's call it Features Blurbs. and we're going to save it to the library. All right, the next section we had was kind of this header section right here. So I'm going to click on this headline row, and I'm going to save this to the library and give it the layout name typical section header. Let's save that. We also had this email section right here, so I'm actually going to save this whole section, and let's call it the email subscription section. We're going to save this to the library. And then finally, we want to save the Meet the Team as a section as well. So let's download that, save the layout as Meet the Team layout, and save to the library. Now we're ready to start building our About page, but we've got a head start because we've already got these assets built. So let's go to our About page. All we're going to do is click on this About in the navigation. It's going to show us our blank About page. We don't have anything on it right now. And all we're going to do is enable the Visual Builder, and we'll start building. So this time, once again, we're going to build from scratch. The first thing we want to build is that page header. So let's add a new section. Let's make it a full width section, and let's insert the full width header module. Let's go ahead and delete that dummy section it gives us, and let's get to building. So let's change our title to About. Let's remove this button here by deleting it, and then let's change this content to something more relevant to our page. All right, a little bit more relevant. Now that's pretty much the bones of this page header section, right? So now we just need to start editing it to make it look how we want. So I'm going to add a background. I'm going to add a background image. So go to the image here. Let's add it right here. And let's do this one. Looks good. You can also change how the background looks. You can add a parallax effect again, which kind of makes it seem like it's moving in tandem. You can choose whether you want the background image size to cover, to fit, to be an actual size. You can also choose where you want the image to be positioned, so it could be the bottom center and you get a little bit different look. You can also choose whether you want it to repeat or not. So if you're using small images, you can tell a difference with the image repeat. We're going to leave it at no repeat. Let's change this bottom center just back to regular center. And let's add a gradient over this image to make these words stick out a little bit more. So we're going to highlight gradient, add a background gradient, and let's go ahead and do our normal blue, blue, and take the opacity down a little bit. We're also going to scroll down and place the gradient above the background image. Awesome, that looks really nice. I might adjust this opacity here real quick. Looks better. Now let's go ahead and style our text. So for the full width header settings, we're going to go to Design. We're going to click Layout, and then we want to orient these to the middle. Next, I want to change my title text size, so we're going to go down to title text. Remember, this is an H1. We only have one H1 per page for SEO purposes. I'm going to make the font weight bold. I'm going to increase the size a little bit. Remember, this is on a desktop, but if we were editing for our phone, we could click this responsive button here and choose which one we wanted. But for now, I'm going to stick to this desktop. There, that looks good. Next, I might make this paragraph text a little bit bigger. So let's go to our body text, and let's go from 14 to 18. That looks a little bit better. Now, the last thing we want to do is fix the height of this section. See how it's just a little bit short and we don't have enough content to make it taller? So what I'm going to do is come to the Advanced tab. We're going to go to Custom CSS. We're going to go to the main element, and we're going to type min height 350 pixels. See, it just makes that just a little bit taller, gives it a little bit more space to breathe. Awesome, looking good. So now we've got our header section, and what I'm going to do is, I know that we're going to reuse this on other pages, so I'm going to save this section to the library and call it page header. We're going to save this. Now on our blog and contact pages, we can reuse it and just have to change the picture and the words. So now let's add our services section. So I'm going to add a section. We're going to make it a regular section. And the first thing we want to do is add that universal headline that we saved on our homepage. So to do that, we're going to go to Add from Library, and we're going to select a typical section header. And look at that, it's popped up right there. Next, let's start adding those featured blurbs that we also saved in the last page. So let's add a new row. Let's select Add from Library, and we'll add the features blurbs. Now remember, we have 6, so all we need to do is duplicate this row, and now we've got 6, and we have built that section in like 30 seconds. So let's go ahead and change this to what we want to say. And below that, we want to add another little byline. So let's hover over this module. Let's add one, and then let's add a text module. We'll delete this content, type what we want to say. Looks good. Now all we need to do is center it. Let's go to the Design tab, click on Text. Let's scroll down till we find the text alignment right here. Center it. Awesome, looks great. Now let's just change these blurbs to what they need to be. So I'm going to use my inline editor and just start typing. All right, those are looking good. And now all we need to do is change the icons to reflect what these blurbs are talking about. So remember, we'll hover over a module, we'll click on the image and icon, and then pick our icon from there. All right, that's looking pretty good. Now all I want to do is add a little bit more space on the top and bottom of the sections. So I'm going to come down to the padding. I'm going to link these two together, pull it down just a little bit. Added it up here too, so now this is looking a lot tighter and a lot better. So let's go ahead and add our next section, which is going to be the Meet Our Team section. So remember, we saved that section from our home page, so all we have to do is click Add New Section. We're going to add this section from the library, and we're going to select Meet the Team Layout. And here is Meet Our Team. So that's already built for us. All we want to do is change the background color. So let's go to the section settings. We'll click Background. Let's change this to a gradient. We'll do our familiar blue gradient with a little bit more opacity here. And then we just need to change the color of the fonts. So let's change this divider to white. Color white. And we'll look for the blue icon and we'll change these to white as well. Save it. Hover, look for the blue icon, save it. Great. Now we also need to change these really quick, so let's go into the module settings for this blurb, and let's change the title text to white, and we'll keep it at that. And we're just going to copy these module styles over to the others, paste, and we're all good to go. Now the last section on this About page is going to be the contact submission form. So let's add a new section. Let's add from our library. Here's the email subscription form that we just set up. Perfect. Now we'll just change this to, let's change this. Every month you'll receive news and information on the world of IT. Now that's a feature, but people don't care about that. They want benefits. Now here's the benefit then. Now you'll always be up to date and ready to take on any technical problems. So again, we want to start with the feature, which is receiving the news and information on the world of IT. And then we want to end with the benefit. You'll be up to date if you do this. Let's change this contact form. Remember, this is not the same contact form that sends the PDF, so we need to change it. We'll go into the module settings. We want to get a name, an email, and then let's get a phone number. So let's give it a field ID of phone. The title will be phone. Here the title changes there. We'll go back to the contact form. We'll scroll down to email and we'll make any changes. There's our email already entered in, so we don't need to change that. It's your website. You just got a subscriber. And then we just need to delete this message because we don't have a message here, right? And then we just need to change this to capital P because it's capitalized there. Save it. And then we're good. Finally, the last thing we need to do is add our universal footer. So let's add a section. We'll add it from the library. And then in green, remember green is universal. Here is our page contact footer. We add that. Looks great. All we need to do is hit Command S to save. And we have built our About page. Now remember, we want to check it on mobile, so let's see how it looks on our phone. Looks pretty good. So we've created our about page, and now we need to make our contact page. But think about this first. I know that our contact page is going to look very similar to this about page. So what I want to do is click this big purple button right here, and I actually want to save this whole page as a template. So I'm going to click Save to Library here, and we're going to give this layout a name. Let's call it Typical Page Layout, and we're going to save it to the library. Now this whole page layout is saved, so we can create the contact page even faster. So to do that, let's go to our contact page just by clicking over. Here's our blank contact page. We want to enable the visual builder. This time, when we get the three options, instead of building from scratch, we're going to choose a pre-made layout. Now let's browse those layouts. Now here are all the layouts that we saw earlier that you're familiar with, but remember we saved our own. So you can find that up here in your saved layouts. And there's our typical page layout right there. So let's click it. All of a sudden, in this contact page, it loads our about page. So all we have to do now is change a few of these wordings and icons, and our contact page is almost done. So let's do that right now with the header. Let's change about to contact using the inline editor. Let's change this to something a little bit more relevant. All right, and let's change the background on this full width module again. We'll go to the settings for this module. We'll scroll down to background. We'll go to the picture. Here's the picture we're using, but let's change that. Let's change that to this. That kind of looks like someone reaching out, right? And now the picture's different, but we still got the exact same setup, okay? Here, we want to add our contact form. So below this section, I'm going to add a new section. We'll make it a regular section, and we'll give it a width of 2 columns. So here are 2 columns. The next thing we want to do is add a divider. Let's go ahead and style that up a little bit because we kind of know what it looks like, right? The design, the color is going to be this green color. The sizing, we're going to give it a weight of 3. And we're going to give it a width of, say, 35%. We're going to left align it. Under the divider, hover over it, we need to add a headline. So we'll insert the text module down here. We'll delete this content, type our headline, and if you're in the text builder, go to the visual builder, highlight this, change it from a paragraph to an H2, heading 2, and then let's make it a little bit bigger. Let's go into the design. Remember, it's a heading text. Here's H2, and let's make it just a little bit bigger. Let's take it to 32 pixels. Looks good. And then below that, let's add a little message. So below this headline, let's add a module, and let's add just some text. Now in this column, we want to add our contact form. So let's add the module. There's a contact form. And this time, let's leave name, email address, and message. Let's just make them full width. So remember, go into name, go to the design of this name, choose layout, make it full width. Let's go back to our main contact form settings. Let's change email to full width as well. So we'll go to the design, choose make full width on the layout. Then we're ready to go. Let's just change the look of that button. So we'll go back to our main contact form settings. We'll go to the design. We'll go to the button. We'll use custom styles. And let's make the text color white. Let's give the button a background color of this green we're using. Let's remove the border totally by dragging that 2 from 2 to 0. And then let's give it a border radius, as usual, of 100 pixels. Finally, let's go back and make these sections white as well. So we'll hover over them and we get that paintbrush. Should be an easy fix. Here's the form field background color. We'll make it disappear. Since we've made these white, our borders have disappeared because we haven't set any border colors. So let's minimize this and we'll scroll down here to border. We'll round the corners off a little bit by going to 5 pixels so they're not as sharp. We'll make our border width 1 pixel and now they've appeared over here. Let's go down and make this black a little bit less noticeable by dragging down the opacity. And that looks a lot better right there. So I'll save it. So now we've created our contact form. Now the next section I want to create is very similar to that blurb section we've already created. So I'm going to just add a section here. I'm going to choose a regular section. And instead of inserting a row, I'm going to choose the features blurb row that we've already created. And then I just need to edit it a little bit. So let's make those edits right now. All right, now let's go and make these icons what they need to be. Hover over this module, choose the settings, go to the icon, let's fill these in. All right, those are looking good. And now let's just change the background color to this section. So we'll hover over this blue section, go into the settings, go to the background, and we'll just add a background color of gray. So let's choose this black and let's drag it to make it a little bit more gray. Looking good. Let's save this. I think that's looking pretty nice. We don't need this section, so I'm just going to trash it. We don't need this section either, so I'm going to trash it. We don't need this one, I'm going to trash it. And here is our global footer. So we have just built our contact page and we've hooked it up to an email to get it working. So let's save this and move on to our final page, the blog page. So to do that, I'm going to click on blog. We're going to enable the visual builder. When our three options pop up this time, we're going to again choose a pre-made layout, right? We've got it. Let's just save some time and use a pre-made layout. We'll click on your saved layouts. Here's that typical page one we just made. It'll load up in about 5 seconds, and there is our page pretty much built. We just need to change our header. So let's change it from about to blog. Let's make this a relevant phrase. All right, and let's change the background on this full width header model. So notice when I move my mouse around now that I'm not getting the hover effects. Sometimes that will happen. Again, to remedy this, just hover over a different section, click it, get out, and now you can get these hover sections back. I've just found that sometimes in Divi, for whatever reason, that will happen. Let's change the background again. Module settings, scroll down to the background, scroll to the picture tab. Let's click on it. Let's use these reading glasses. That looks blog ready-like, right? Awesome, looks great, and we'll save it. Here we need to insert our blog post, so I'm going to delete this section, delete this one, and then save this one. This is our universal footer. And we just need to add our blog posts between these two sections. So let's find this purple plus button. We'll add a new section. It'll be regular. We'll insert one row, and then we want to choose the blog module here. Kind of like we saw on the home page, it populates it. Now it's got this nice full width section with the title, the author, the date, the categories. But let's clean that up a little bit. First of all, let's take off the author, the date, and the category. To do that, we scroll down to Elements. We'll hide the author, we'll hide the date, and we'll hide the categories. Once it reloads, you'll see those are gone. The next thing I want to do is change the layout of this. I want to use a grid layout. So I'll close Elements, go over to the Design tab here, and change the layout from full width to grid. Looks a lot better. Next, let's center these titles right here. I'm going to go down to Title Text, expand it, and click on Text Align. Looks great. The only thing I might do from here is add a drop shadow to these blog posts to get them to stick out a little bit more on the page. So to do that, we're going to scroll down to Box Shadow. We'll add, this one looks pretty good, nice. I might just take down the spread strength a little bit. All right, that's looking better. So I'd save that. Now just for kicks, let's say we wanted to add a read more button. So maybe you want to create more blog posts later, or you just want to send them to a different page to read other posts. Let's go ahead and create a read more button. So I'm going to add a new row. It'll be a single column width. We'll add a button. There it is right there, looking good. Let's change the text to read more. Now we need to link this button to a page on our website. So we're going to click link. And let's say we stored extra blog posts at this page. So that's where this button is now linked to this page. Let's change the design. We'll align it to the center. We'll add custom styles to the button by clicking button, enabling it, and then making the text color white, the background color green. We'll slide the border width to 0 pixels to get rid of it, and then we'll change the button border radius to 100. And let's say we wanted it to stick out a little bit more. Let's add a little box shadow to it. So we'll scroll down, find our box shadow section. Let's give it a little box shadow. That looks good. I might take down the opacity of the color so it's not quite such an exaggerated effect. There, it's a lot more subtle now. And we'll save this. And just like that, we have created our blog page in about 5 minutes or so. One of the final things I'm going to do is show you how to create a footer. So let's create a footer down here. And what we want to do is we want to remove this bottom bar. I want to show you how to remove these icons and then show you how to add a few more footer elements down here as well. So to do that, we're going to go to our WordPress dashboard. We're going to scroll down to Divi, Theme Customizer, and then under our footer, we want to select the layout, and we're going to make this a 3-column layout. You can change the background color here if you want. If we scroll to the bottom and we move the background color to green, then that turns green, and so on. We'll keep it this kind of dark blackish color. Then we're going to click Publish. So we've saved that 3-column layout. Now we need to add widgets to each column. So we're going to click X. We're going to scroll down to Appearance, Widgets, and here you can see a list of all the different widgets we can add into our footer. You can do audio, a calendar, page links, ads, an image, another navigation menu, whatever you want. And over here are the available areas for our footer. Now remember, we only did 3, so we're only going to be filling out these 3. So in the first area, we want to add a menu. So I'm going to select Navigation Menu, drag it over to Footer 1, and we want to give it a title. Let's call it Quick Links. Now we need to tell the widget which menu we want to show. There's that main nav we created earlier. We'll save this. In our middle footer area, we want to add quick contact links. So that's just going to be some text. So we'll scroll down to text and we'll drag it over to this footer 2 area. Let's give it the title of contact. And then let's add in our phone number and email address. So we'll do our phone number and then we'll add our email address. Next, we want to add links to these so that people can click them and either call us or email us directly. So we'll highlight this number, we'll insert a link, and you want to type TEL and then whatever your telephone number is. And then you want to apply this link to that text. So now if someone clicks this number on our website, it will call us, and you have to put TEL : right there for that to work. The next thing we want to do is add an email address to this word. So I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to insert a link, and then it's automatically going to create mail to info. So it does it on its own. Let's apply that, and then we'll save it. We'll click done. And for our third footer area, we want to add some blog posts. So let's drag this recent posts widget over here. We'll add the title. And then number of posts, we only have 3 right now. So we'll show that. I don't want to display the post date, and we'll save it. Click done. Now our footer should be all set up. To check it, let's go and check out the site. So we'll click on this up here, visit site, and we'll scroll to the bottom. There is our footer. If we wanted to edit it a little bit, we can hover over here, choose Theme Customizer, select the footer, scroll down so we can see it, select the widgets, and here we can control how it looks. From the header text size, let's make it 20. Let's make the body link text a little bit smaller, maybe 14. We can also change the header color. I might just change it to a regular white, so we'll drag it, or just pick the white down here. And let's say I didn't want those bullets right there. Well, we can click on that, just make it totally invisible, takes them away. And I might even bold those headers a little bit more just to show that they're different. Actually, I'm going to leave it how it was. Awesome, looking good. So we have this, but let's say we want to get rid of this bottom bar. We don't want those credits showing. All we need to do is go to the bottom bar, and we need to select Disable the Credits. And now those credits are gone. Let's say we wanted to remove these social media icons. We can go to the Footer Elements bar, and we can toggle that. Let's keep them showing for this purpose. Now once we're done, we need to click Publish, and the changes will be saved. One final thing we want to do, and this is really important, let's X out of this. Notice our home page right now is our blog page. We don't want that. We spent a lot of time creating a nice home page. So how do we fix this? Well, to fix this, we need to tell WordPress what our home page is. So we'll hover over WordPress. We'll go to the dashboard. We'll go down to Settings. We want to go to Reading. And then here, we will select where our home page is. Your home page displays a static page. We'll tell Divi what the home page is. It's our home. We'll save the changes. Now, if we go back to our site, we'll see that our home page has been updated to be this one that we created. Check our buttons to make sure they're linking up right. Looks good. That links to our About page. Go back. Awesome. There's our contact page. So a few things you might want to do from here before you officially launch. You might want to go through and make little tweaks in mobile responsiveness to different pages. Pull up this testing site on your phone, a tablet, a big screen computer monitor, and make sure everything looks okay. Remember, you might need to tweak some of those responsive sections to get them to look just exactly how you want them. Cool, now our site is all completed, so the last thing we need to do is point our domain to this website we've just built. So to do that, we're going to come back to our Cloudways server that we built a little while ago. Here it is. If you see the server, go ahead and slide this slider over to Applications. Click your website that you created, and then you're going to copy down this public IP number. This is the address to your server. The next thing you're going to do is give your site a name. So come over to Domain Management, click on Primary Domain, and type in the domain name we bought at the beginning of this video. And mine was forloopcreative.com. And we're going to save these changes. This changes the actual name of our WordPress site, which is good. Once you've saved the changes and that's been updated, now all we need to do is go back to domains.google.com or wherever you chose to store your domain. Here's what the dashboard looks like. We're going to go over here to DNS or anything that looks like DNS. If this page has changed, just look for DNS. Here is our forloopcreative.com DNS. We're going to leave all of this alone. The only thing we're going to do is add a custom resource record. And that sounds hard, but it's super easy. Just copy down exactly what I'm about to tell you. Under this section, we're going to write the @ symbol. When we scroll over here to pick a type of record, we're going to choose A. If this says any sort of time right here, like 1H or 30M, 1 hour, 30 minutes, whatever, we're going to just change this to 30 minutes. And in the IPv4 address is where we are going to paste that IP address we just copied down from Cloudways. All right, we're halfway done. All we need to do is add one more, so click Add. And in this new box, we are going to type www. We're going to keep this in A record. We're going to change this to 30 minutes again. And we're just going to copy in that IPv4 address. What this is doing is saying if someone types in www before whatever domain name you bought, then redirect them to this site. So it's kind of more of a fail-safe than anything. We're going to click Add. And then all of a sudden that website we created is now linked to this domain. So whatever your company domain is. It can take up to about 24 hours for this to take effect. So if you click over to your domain and it's not showing, give it at least 24 hours, but usually it only takes about 5-10 minutes or so. All right, it's been 5 minutes since I entered those records. Let's go and see if this domain is active yet. So I'm going to come to my search bar and type forloopcreative.com. And the site is active, working. I want to keep double checking this. Just double check this during the week and see if you need to change anything. Go in and play around with your Divi settings. But all of a sudden, we have a fully working website where people can reach out to us, they can read about us, learn about us, and hopefully become a client in the future. and your business will grow. And you're done. You have a new site ready to launch whenever you are. Again, if you want copies of the layout we created today, you can go to brandonstyles.com/Divi assets and download them there. Thank you seriously so much for watching and joining me today. If you have a question, ask it in the comments and I will do my best to get back to you. Also, check out some other videos on my channel. And if you got value today, please subscribe, and you can even hit that little bell in the corner and it will notify you when a new video comes on that will ideally help you and your business with its digital marketing strategy, its website strategy, online leads, things like that. Lastly, we have built our website. It's ready to go. Now, if you want to learn a little bit more about how to optimize your website so that it ranks highly in Google, go to the link below and look at my product called Page One Pro. It's going to break down a few first page rankings for you and show you how to better set up your site for Google success. Thanks again for watching. Good luck on your website and congratulations.